Welcome to the GreatBase Tennis Podcast, episode number 81. I'm Steve Smith. I'm with Karla Wojcik. I don't want to disrespect her husband, Robert, but I go by the last name. I met her when she was Karla Navarro, maiden name. Known her going on almost 40 years. I tease and say to people all the time, some kid comes by, you're my favorite student. I tell him, and then he's standing right next to me, another student comes by, I go, you're my favorite student. But Navarro, she may be indeed my favorite student. Actually, 100 years ago today was my mother's birthday, and she would love to have Karla Navarro on her birthday. Couldn't be a greater guest. All right, let's go with the kid from Bolivia, the Bolivian connection. Welcome, Karla. Tell us about your journey in tennis growing up. This will be fun.
Okay, I grew up in Cochabamba, was born in La Paz, Bolivia, a small country. My grandparents, they play tennis in Oruro. They played at a very high altitude of 13,000 feet. Both cities where my grandparents are from are very high up in the mountains. But they grew up in Cochabamba, and my parents had a chicken farm. And my father was with 7 children. He pretty much took us all to the tennis court. And
Willie.
Willie.
With, say that again slowly, Cochabamba?
Cochabamba.
Cochabamba.
Yeah, Cochabamba, Bolivia.
Say that 3 times fast. Said the Bolivian connection with Willie, what great passion. And then he came to the United States, but for years and years, was he coaching tennis as well as working the farm?
Yes, he would work on the farm at night. Most of the job would be done during the night, and during the day he would take us to the tennis courts.
So that's got to be one of the most difficult pieces, maybe not difficult, but different places to play with the red clay and the high altitude.
Yes.
Combination of both.
Very different, yes.
Came to the United States, so your father's one of 7.
No, my father is one of 4, but
you're one of 7.
We're 7 children in the family.
And I know you're number 1, but which your birth order?
I'm.
You're the oldest.
I'm number 1.
You're number 1. I always tease people. I'm the youngest of 6. I always say the encore kid, the best comes last. And I remember, like so many people, when you came to the U.S., it's like people have a cousin. I didn't really know Mickey Navarro, but he's a very, very young guy, maybe younger than you, right?
No, he was older.
A couple years older?
Yeah.
But outgoing, athletic.
Yep.
But that was your connection, and they were in the area of Tyler, Texas. So you came over and entered the tennis tech program. And let's go back over your, I know now you speak English and, well, obviously Spanish, but English and a little German, a little French, no profanity. But you spoke no English when you started, pretty much.
Correct.
And you were there, because of that, you stayed an extra year. You were there 3 years.
Yes, and also your program grew a lot.
Yeah, with the tennis tech program.
Mm-hmm.
With, I know you married Robert, came over from Poland, played tennis in South Carolina. I tease and I call Navarro Karla by her last name and ask, hey, where's the dumb blonde? Where's the dumb blonde? You married the dumb blonde. Actually, I think he's a tennis intellectual. Overthinks it like some of us. But before we get to the marriage, you came over, and I remember your brother. How much younger is Rodrigo? What number is he?
Rodrigo is the 5th, but he's the first boy.
First boy.
Yeah.
I can remember like it was yesterday. What was the type of racket he used?
Ergono?
Yeah. Tennis. It was an Austrian made racket, right?
I think it was Belgium.
Belgium.
Yeah.
And the shape of the head was.
Yeah, like tilted.
Tilted, yeah.
Yes.
But I remember I had some very good juniors that could not compete with your brother. He just was a machine. Of course, he had spent hours and hours Willie. Like
Yeah.
those days I think have gone where people go out and say, we're going to hit cross court on the forehand for an hour, and then we're going to hit cross court on the backhand
Yep.
for an hour.
Yeah, very simple method.
No, it works. But when you come around, you're talking to some of the kids, and they think, well, who's the mom? And to get their attention, I did this once with my son Connor. He didn't pick it up the first time. I had to turn up the volume, but I said, hey, her younger brother has a win over Federer. You were out in Arizona, and I remember I always thought that was so strange that a lot of most of the high-level juniors would be in Florida playing the Eddie Hurd, the Orange Bowl, and then boom, now you have to go to Arizona.
Yep.
And it's 32 degrees in the morning and 72 degrees in the afternoon. But I know you helped him out, and one year in the 18s, he got to the finals of the Nationals, and you staying with Rodrigo, you, your family, and he calls me up and goes, everybody here is speaking Spanish. Can I stay in the hotel with my friends?
Yep, I remember that.
So I turned up the volume and I said, you know the guy taking you to the tournament and the guy warming you up, he can beat anybody in the tournament. He has a win over the Fed. But I had to turn the volume up because I told him that before he went. And then he's like, really? I go, yeah. And my recollection of that is when Federer won Junior Wimbledon, he was escorted off to go back to Switzerland and play a Futures. And he said that he really didn't want to go because he wanted to go to the Wimbledon ball. And I think it's really interesting. He said he remembers leaving the Wimbledon grounds going, I may never be back.
Yep.
Because a lot of times juniors, even though he won the tournament, you're not a shoo-in to make the main draw. Tell us about that. Was it, and your son's 10, your son, excuse me, your brother's 10 years older. So he's 28, Roger's 18.
Yeah, they were younger. Him, Federer and Wawrinka, they all, they were the teenagers. And it was a different generation, that's for sure.
With so Tennis Tech, we had a couple of podcasts about Tennis Tech. There was a 2-year program. Unfortunately, it was just recently dropped. I know there's Ferris State, there's Methodist. The USTA has a department called USTU. I think we had someone say on one of the podcasts, Karla Navarro said, I think there's nine programs where you can study tennis. Share with the listeners, what are some of your thoughts? You could say differences between tennis in South America, and now you've traveled the world, but what are some of your thoughts? Share with listeners to give value on Tennis Tech.
Yeah, definitely was not like nothing that I've seen anywhere. I still believe I was too young and to be there. I did not speak enough English until the second, third year, and I started getting a grasp of where I was and what it meant. I thought it was definitely a privilege and opportunity to be exposed to the best tennis teachers.
By the time you came, I think you started in the fall of '85 with, by that time, there was close to 100 students.
Yep.
From all over. From all over. With junior tennis, go back to the days in Bolivia. Did you play at a club? Did you just play on the farm?
Yeah, we played at the club. Grew up in a club where everybody knew each other. Our parents, we played with each other. The juniors, we spent our time over there. Bolivia is a very small country, so most of the tennis players would see each other in the nationals, and it was, we didn't get to play that much international tennis except for, Banana Bowl or Argentina Bowl, a couple of the stronger countries. But it was always a nice experience to travel and play the red clay tournaments and see some of the level in those tournaments.
So then Rodrigo progressed. So if you were 17, obviously you could tell us if you're 17. So he came to the U.S. when you came. How old was he?
He was 12.
12 years old. And he was already a machine.
Yeah, he was pretty strong. Although he would say that he was one of the few players that was homeschooling. Most of the kids he was playing against were going to regular school, and he feels that was a little bit his advantage.
I remember years and years later doing a workshop for you and Robert at the Wigwam in Arizona. Beautiful place.
Yep.
I remember years ago, Margaret Court, the great champion from Australia, she ran a tennis program at the Wigwam. But that's where Willie, I've met your father so many times, but he sat in and watched the pros in slow motion. But it was really your brother's serve that kept him back, correct? From just, because he was number one in the world at 14, right?
Well, yeah, I would say when he was 12, it didn't matter that much.
Right, of course.
So it wasn't really a priority of my father developing a good technique in the serve. He won with his ground strokes and his head. I mean, he was very smart, yeah, definitely. When he got older, he definitely needed a serve. He needed a weapon. But also playing on clay courts, it's not as urgent, I would say, because you can get away without a big serve. And at that time, Europeans, I would say, didn't have that much of a weight. They didn't give importance to the serve as Americans would on a hard service.
No, that's a good point. Years ago, Braden used to always say that the Americans, they could all serve because they played baseball, and that's not the case anymore. And obviously, just throwing a football. Actually, Vic Braden was in Argentina teaching coaches. He worked with Vilas's junior coach. In fact, through that experience, Jeff Austin, Tracy Austin's brother, he played the Orange Bowl, and Vilas was his partner. And Vic used to tell a story that when he was in Argentina, he said, I want to see you guys throw. And Vic could speak Spanish, so he said, I want to see you guys throw. And they started, and actually, I get the word wrong. Vic said, I want to see you guys play catch. That's how an American would say it. We had, a number of people today, we have 2 baseball gloves and just, hey, you guys go play catch with the baseball. So Vic said, hey, let's see you guys play catch. And they started playing catch, dribbling the ball back and forth with their feet. Ball never touched their hands. So no, that's very, very true that years ago, the world in some ways is such a much smaller place. And they would always say, well, the Europeans are very good with their feet because of soccer. Yep. And I think that's still a factor, but that the Americans, I mean, way back before tennis became a global sport, when the Berlin Wall came down and tennis became an Olympic sport, it's very easy to remember in the 70s, on the men's side, we would have as many as 70 men in the Wimbledon draw.
Yeah.
So many things.
Dominating.
And of course, the rackets were wooden, and way back when in California, all the public courts were made of cement, not asphalt-based cement, just lightning fast. Yeah. And the conditions in some of them were just white. You're playing on a white cement court. It's just serve and go. But how far did he go? I know he played so much club tennis, and he still plays. Tell us a little about what he's doing now.
Yeah, well, right now he still plays in Belgium. He still plays men's open. He plays against all these young guys coming up. Everybody had to play against Rodrigo sometime. Growing up in Switzerland or east of France, and now everybody had to come up and play against Rodrigo at some time in Belgium, because it's a smaller country. So they all know him, but he's still playing. I mean, he's still teaching tennis, but he doesn't really do that much instruction. Most of his lessons are hitting lessons. He can hit for 10 hours straight.
Yeah, I want to come back to something you just told me the other day with one thing he does in his lessons, but Matt Clore was just here weekend before last helping us with a workshop. College tennis, people who are insiders to college tennis, they ask the question, did you play the tournament? And a lot of people, they don't know what that means. Did you play a tournament? That means, did you play in the NCAA? Men and women, 64 players. And it's not just from the ranking because, it varies. It's varied over the years. But like say, for example, if you win your conference, if you're the ACC champion or the SEC champion, however that goes, that you're in the tournament. But your son Kuba is obviously a very good player. I remember Matt said, well, he's got to be good if he made the tournament. So it was just a year and a half ago he played in the NCAAs. Here's the question, but how is Kuba, how old was he when he started taking sets from Rodrigo?
Every year they had to face each other, and of course, but a couple of years ago they had to play in a semifinal of a tournament, and my sister suggested they only play one set, and whoever wins that set wins the second. And he said, you're not going to kill each other for, you can do better in the final. And my brother said, I've been waiting 20 years for this match. This is the match. I'm going to play every point. And yeah, Cuba ended up winning the third set, but yeah, none of them was going to give it away.
I one time was a volunteer when I first got into tennis. It was a Virginia Wade Yvonne Goolagong exhibition, and I was in the meeting where I was so new to tennis, and it was in Syracuse, New York, and they said, well, you win the first set, I'll win the second set, and we'll play the third out. And they were both giggling because the other person was supposed to win the first set.
Oh.
And they did end up playing 3 sets, and that was just, it's always better for the audience if there's a 3-set match. But you were saying something about Rodrigo when he gives a lesson. It's like rally 10 played out, then rally 9 played out. Is that how it works?
Yeah. That's one. He has a pretty much set routines in how he does the lesson. He does 15 minutes of this, then he does 15 minutes of this. Every lesson is the same. And yes, at the end he does, 10 played out, 10 rallies played out, 9, 8, 7, all the way to 1, and then all the way back to 10. That's how, he ends up, getting players to work still on the technique, on the rallies, but then switch it to a playing mode. And I thought that was a nice
one thing Rodrigo can do, someone who's that skilled, is, kids today, of course they said that when I was young, kids today, they watch too much TV. Kids today, too much time on their cell phone. But automatically he's going to teach relaxation skills because he just has rhythm and he's just going to keep the ball in play. And I work with so many kids that, it's like rally 4 played out, rally 6 played out, rally 8 played out, and they can rally. But if you take that situational assignment away from them, they just start blasting balls.
Yep.
We do something similar with a tiebreaker. Put 2 kids out and say, okay, play a tiebreaker to the 10-point tiebreaker. Mm-hmm. Not really such a big fan of that being a match decider, but so we use it in practice. We play 10-point tiebreaker, and you have a younger player, older player, say one who's superior in skills, and say, okay, you have a 9-point advantage. And then if you win that, you have an 8-point advantage. It's a very similar concept where you go down to 7, down to 6. And because a lot of times people will go on automatic pilot, and then many juniors will give you attitude if they think they're on the court with an inferior player. Like, don't you know who I am? I am a tennis snob, and I need to be hitting with better players. Now, of the 7 children, how many pursued tennis, say, beyond juniors? Played in college or teach?
5 of my sisters played college tennis. My brother, of course, he played 10 years of Davis Cup and, continues playing. And the only one that didn't really play tennis seriously, he's a doctor.
So he made the wrong decision.
Yep.
He's saving lives. It's not as important. Hitting balls. Got to hit those yellow balls between the white lines.
Yeah.
And Willie, how old is your father, and he's still coaching?
Yeah, he's...
you slowed down at all?
A little bit, yeah. But he likes to be around the tennis court. So whenever the kids are playing, grandchildren are playing now, my sisters are still teaching, so he's any chance he has to be around tennis court, that's where he prefers to be.
I think there's value in the nickname, the Transformer. Tell us what that means, the Transformer. Who's a Transformer and what's it mean? The
Transformer is my sister-in-law, Rodrigo's wife. because she did everything in tennis. She started late, and from then on, she just was passionate about the sport, and she did everything from helping around the courts to stringing to learning languages, teaching in a different language. Anything you ask her, she would do.
Being the tutor,
Being
tutoring kids, dishwashing.
yeah, never drove a car. She was always in her bicycle. Yeah, very.
No, I think when someone gets a job and you just tell people, I'll do whatever it takes. I'll do whatever needs to be done. I'll be the first one here and the last one to leave. I do everything but windows and floors. Actually, you turn that around and go, I will do windows and floors.
Yeah.
With Tennis Tech, let's talk about, top of the list for me is Helen Hudnall. Helen Hudnall, she taught German as a volunteer. Tennis Tech started in 81. We revised a general recreation curriculum. And that's when there was, shortly after, a boom in Germany. 85 is when Becker won Wimbledon as a 17-year-old. In a very wealthy country, there's all these jobs. To this day, there's quite a few tennis techers that are in Germany.
Yep.
But Helen Hudnall, she was amazing individual. She was a World War II prisoner of war survivor. And talk about someone who could teach character. What comes to your mind when you think of Helen?
No, definitely made a very strong positive impact in our lives. Just having her around the program was just so valuable. I thought she taught more than how to teach tennis in German, which is the class we had at 7 a.m. It was a class with Helen, and it prepared us to go to Europe. Thanks to that class, I was able to teach in Germany for Mark Hamlin. She just gave us so much confidence, and she just said
so much energy.
Yeah.
My mother, 100 years old, so my mother would come and visit. And Helen was much older. She was going strong in her 90s. I can remember Craig Tiley, who's from South Africa, who obviously didn't do a lot of snow skiing, and my former wife, who's from Ireland, who didn't do a lot of snow skiing. So with Helen, the three of them go snow skiing. I'm teaching some clinics, and I didn't go, so I'm at the bottom of the hill, and they go skiing. I remember Tiley saying, and he was laughing at it. She's so tough. I would fall down, and she'd hit me with a ski pole. Get up. You're falling down too much. That was the instruction. But I found out, how language should really be taught. Thinking in the U.S., I've taught so many valedictorians, salutatorians. They're number one, number two in their class. They've taken 5 years of French, and they can't even order lunch. But, she'd point to the window, and, was ist das? And you just go, window. It was really very much like the nuns in a Catholic school. It's like she'd hit the table, and then if you said Fenster, you hit the table or hit knuckles again, right in your face, and you'd have to go, was ist das? Das ist ein Fenster. No, I might have even made a mistake with that, but
It's good.
I would bet that being the answer. I remember Rafael Fontemora from Spain. He was in the program, and he was one of the better players on campus. He didn't play on the team, but next to Toli Marinkovic, I think he was the second best player on the campus at that time. And I remember Helen, talk about being competitive. She did it just the opposite, where she said she wasn't poaching and go, I'll be all over the court. She said, I will stand right here. I will stand right by the net post. They're playing some pro-am. And she said, you cover the rest.
I can picture her doing that.
Let's jump ahead and we'll come back to this. Recently, at the Delray Beach Open, I think teaching kids, obviously Tennis Tech had so much to do with just tennis teaching. But what about the ball kids? Your journey in tennis, you've been in all these countries and met all these different pros. But so you and Robert were in Arizona for many, many years. How many?
We were 12 years in Arizona.
And came here really because the competition was better for your children. Better
because of the tournaments, the amount of tournaments. We did a lot of driving in Arizona. We had to drive, 8 hours to New Mexico or 4 or 5 hours to Las Vegas or Los Angeles, 7 hours to El Paso. I mean, when we came to Florida one summer, it was, we wanted to get out of the heat in Arizona, so we came to Florida. And so they told us it was hot here, but for us it was, there were clouds, there was ocean breeze, and
It's not quite as hot.
No.
Of course, when you're in a place like Arizona, I remember teaching in California, and just touching like a metal ball basket, then you find out how hot it is because the dry heat versus the heat. With the traveling. I didn't know this for the longest time. I lived in Texas for 10 years, that El Paso is not part of the Texas Tennis Association.
Correct. It's part of the Southwest.
And I know that because there was a young guy from El Paso. I've taught tennis a handful of times in El Paso. But there was a young kid who won the Texas High School State Championship. And I remember, I haven't heard of this young guy. He's from El Paso. I go, he doesn't play junior tennis. He didn't play junior tennis in Texas. Of course, back then, too, and I think it was a better system where there wasn't level 2s and level 3s. You just had to play in your backyard. Mm-hmm. You had to get to the U.S. Nationals, it was based on the number of members in your section. And maybe to a certain degree it still is, but there's more than one way to get into a national draw. And back in the day, the draws weren't as big as they are now, so Texas had a fairly large population. You say, maybe, 9 kids from Texas could get in, but maybe only, 2 kids from El Paso would be able to go to the Nationals when it was a 64 draw.
Yeah.
And draws that were also open to foreigners. But yeah, that does answer, why there hasn't been that much tennis produced out of the Southwest. But a lot of it's just population too.
Yeah, definitely. But then El Paso, for example, remember when we were traveling to Odessa and with the junior college, and you would be like 10 hours in the car, and we were still in Texas, and the Europeans couldn't understand.
Yeah, I've heard comedians say that they needed 2 Quaaludes to get across Texas. A drug, miles and miles of Texas. There's a county in Texas, I believe, that's bigger than Connecticut. No, it's just massive. If you took Texas, I think if you tip it upside down, that Corpus Christi area takes you all the way to Chicago.
Mm. Oh, wow.
But no, West Texas, I remember that. With 2 different times when I was at Tyler, because there was 3 coaches when I was there: Fred Niffen, Robert Cox, and John Peterson. Mm-hmm. So then I was there in between, and different capacities. I ran team programs. Maybe one time it was for 3 weeks, another time it was for a month. But one time it was for a semester, I remember. But it was also hard courts too, right? In the Southwest.
Yes. We thought the South Florida would be better for, clay courts. Sea level was another reason, because Phoenix is at 600 feet, something like that. The ball flies a little bit different. And definitely the clay courts.
No, I told a mom just today, I'm telling people this on a weekly basis to come and visit. You want your child to be an independent thinker, problem solver. Why you need to be in South Florida right now. Sunshine, clay courts, and competition. And also money. I think it'd be wise for many people. There's not only the Battle of Boca now because of the UTR, the money tournaments, but the Caselli tournaments.
Yep. Is
just make that your playground. Instead of traveling all over the country playing level 2s and level 3s, That's like get your checkbook out. And then also now the UTR, I had a college coach say, I'd like to have the player improve 0.75 each year when the player gets to college.
Yeah.
Where they come into a college program and, so they come in, say they're a 12. And, so it's, you just start doing the math, 0.75 with, how much will they improve while they're there? So if they're a 12, they want to come out and they want to play pro tennis. Will they come out, are they going to be a 13.5? Or are they going to be knocking on the door to be a 14?
Yeah.
I do think that the UTR, it'd be nice in some ways that there's a lot of positive to it, but they didn't have it till they were juniors. We'll come back and talk more about junior tennis, but what about ball kids? You came out here, now you live a stone's throw, a couple golf shots away from the Delray Beach Tennis Center. How many years have you been here?
We've been here 10 years. Almost 12 years, yes. So, from the beginning, I think our son was involved in the ball kids programs, and then he started, being part of the organization a little bit. And then I jumped in, and I joined the family of the Barons, who really put this program, this tournament together, and this year was the 30th anniversary. So Mark, Ivan, Adam Barron, and it's been an incredible experience. We have our kids being part of every aspect of the program. They don't only do the ball kids; they do player services. They warm up the players. They do VIP. They do special events. They help with the ticketing. They help with the media. They help with any area where they are needed. This team of kids, mostly teenagers, they go and help with the different areas, and it's been very interesting for them to learn about how a tournament is run. And
So they're not just ball kids.
yeah, so they
What are the extras they do for VIPs?
basically is checking entrances, making sure people have the right credentials. Sometimes if they are close to the court, they direct people to the right place. There's a lot of events this year. They really push the events because it's Delray Beach, Florida. It's open. Everybody's trying to have a good time. They had lots of restaurants and different events, and there's also clinics, ladies luncheon, and all kinds of activities for people to be part of it. They also did a little bit of teaching with the kids programs, so they jump on court. And this year we had an autism clinic. That was also a success, and we had some players from Lynn University helping with that program. We had some players from FAU also helping with that program.
You had some exos too. The Bryan brothers did too, right?
Yes, the Bryan brothers have been always exceptional about making appearances, signing autographs, spending time with everybody in the tournament.
Like Patrick McEnroe says, the Bryan brothers, they get pumped up for breakfast.
Yeah, no, they've been I never heard of them being, injured, or they couldn't show up, or every event. If they didn't bring their band, they run clinics. They make it all fun. They understand what really tournament is all about. It's bringing people in, making everybody feel welcome.
I think of the Bryan brothers. I was watching practice one time in Miami, and every time that ball went, I'd go pick it up, and it was like, "Thank you, sir." Another time, some arrangements were made where Mike Bryan wasn't both. It was just Mike Bryan spent an afternoon with my son's high school team, the Jesuit High School Tennis over in Tampa. But they just totally get it to give back.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they are the best. I mean, they've done so much for the game, and they stay there until they sign the last autograph and the last picture is taken with them. I mean, they're exceptional.
with we miscued a little bit this past weekend when the pro tournament was here. It was all A-okay. So a mom from Southern California calls up and said, hey, would you consider doing a weekend on how to teach little kids? I go, yeah, we can do that. And of course, the pandemic was lifting, and Brandon Flanagan at that time, he was just getting closer and closer. I mean, he was still probably a few months away from opening the FM Tennis Performance Center where we're sitting tonight. So, Flanagan, I go, yeah, okay. So, but we said, yeah, we'll do it, President's Weekend. But we didn't know it was going to be the same weekend as the finals. So I only got over there one time. I went over and watched Austin Krajicek play a match. And I talked to Rob. One thing I heard this recently from Rob is someone told me that one of the Bryan brothers just pro bono got on a plane and went out to such and such tournament. Maybe it was Indian Wells, and just spent time watching and coaching Austin. I know Austin was a house sitter for one of them, near Saddlebrook. I think Mike was the one who had a house near Saddlebrook. With here's something: the Delray Beach Tennis Center. I used to live in Boca Raton. To be back here, I first came here at 74, 19 years old. It's like, okay, I'm going to pursue a career in tennis. And I used to take the bus. I used to say I was the only one from Boca who got on the city bus, but I would take the bus up Federal Highway. In Atlantic Avenue, I would walk down the Delray Beach Tennis Center, and I would do it once a week. I would take lessons from Ed Foster. And he had 3 children. I think Mike, definitely Tom, and Tracy. Tracy was 2 in the country. It was easy to remember because Tracy Foster was 2, Tracy Austin was 1. Mm-hmm. Tom ended up playing at Georgia, but it's changed that whole Atlantic Avenue. I mean, in your house, what a great place for kids. I know I've had, over the years, brought juniors, and we've stayed at your place, and it's just a stone's throw to go walk up and down Atlantic Avenue.
Yeah, definitely. We moved here. Michael Darcy and Thomas Olsted were directing. Thomas Olsted was directing the Delray Beach Tennis Center. Michael Darcy took over. But they have 2 facilities. One has 24 courts. The other one has I believe 25 hard courts and clay courts and the stadium.
What's the breakdown, though? It's mostly clay, right?
It's mostly clay, correct. And the hard courts are used basically for the tennis tournament, and also a lot of pros train at the facility. Kevin Anderson, Opelka, Coco Gauff, Leila Fernandez, many of them, because of the surface. The surface is a professional tournament surface, and they also like to practice in the stadium with the stadium lights, and the conditions are a little bit similar to the bigger stage. But yeah, I mean, Tiafo, you see guys practicing there. It's nice. It's inspiring for the kids to watch, for people who love tennis.
No, for sure. I think when people get to a place like the U.S. Open, any pro event, they love to watch the pros, but even watch the pros practice. I mean, now at a place like Indian Wells or the U.S. Open, they have huge. It's almost like a huge stadium to go just to watch the practice. Yeah. And I think that's certainly with the Federer, the marquee players, Nadal, Djokovic. I mean, so many people want to just watch them practice. I tease and go, well, they're watching Roger watch practice. Roger's sitting on the bench chatting with one of his friends, and it's almost like Beatlemania. There's Roger. Makes me think it was time I was at the U.S. Open, and I was right by the Mercedes building, and stumbling with my telephone, and these people just start charging after me, like these people want my autograph. Here comes this huge crowd, and now I'm one of the Beatles. I'm going, what is going on? And I looked in the window of the Mercedes building. It was Roger Federer waving. All these people just running over. But yeah, Thomas Olsted was a classmate of yours, but Michael Darcy wasn't.
No, he was younger. He came a little bit later. Uh-huh.
So they both were.
They were
Olstead from
established, yeah.
Sweden and Darcy from Ireland. They both went to Tennis Tech. Yeah, so many connections. I know Brent Wellman, who he didn't go to Tennis Tech, but he's somebody that we trained. That he runs a junior program there, right?
Yes. Mhm. And Doug is there too.
Oh, now, yeah, Doug Tomlin. I get so many great lines from Doug Tomlin. His drummers like to hang out with musicians. You know Mike Carter?
Yep.
Yeah, we should have a reunion. Carter's a drummer. He's been with the Texas Tennis Association probably 25 years. And that's what Doug Tomlin said about Mike Carter. Yeah, he's a drummer. He likes to hang out with musicians. But here's a great story, Delray Beach Tennis Center. I'm sure you helped out. We didn't do anything wrong. But Bud Schultz, great tennis player. He got to be 40 in the world from Boston. Never played a junior tournament. Played at Bates. A really good basketball player. I saw him win his first pro tournament. It was in Tyler, Texas. I have to be careful. I'm pretty sure it was his first pro tournament. I would bet on it was his first pro tournament. So his son, Christo, is sent to work with us by Harvard, the Harvard coach. And Christo went to the Delray Beach Tennis Center. He used to have the National 12s. You don't anymore, but...
I think we do in the spring.
In the spring, you have it? Okay.
Yes, it's at the same time as I believe it's at the same time of the Easter Bowl. Around that time, there is a Longines Cup. I don't know if it's for 12s or 14s, but it's a young.
I know you have the national 16s and 18s, but anyway, so what we did with Christo, and we had people helping him out, and I can't remember whether it was Olstead or Darcy was the tennis director. We say incognito, we were operating, no one knew what we were doing. We filmed 50 boys and 50 girls. We filmed them from behind. We still have the DVD. And we just wanted to capture one serve and one forehand. That was it. And nobody's names, nothing about results. And we also charted. You just had to watch a point and just put a slash down in the tally system. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, boom. And we were just want to count on how many overheads were hit. And they had to chart 1,000 points. They had to watch 1,000 points. Mm-hmm. Now you would think in that type of research, somebody said, "Yeah, I watched 17, or I watched 22," and they didn't watch any. But I would hope that didn't happen. But we did have the film. 7 overheads hit and 1,000 points. 12 and under nationals. But over 90% of the kids had some version of palm up on their serve. And over 90% of the kids had some version of the flaws of an extreme grip. Maybe somebody had already changed their grip where it wasn't really extreme Western. But yeah, that means that their wrist was below the racket, the elbow was pointing down, their racket's almost hitting their earlobe. And then because of that, then the body is open because the contact point's above their shoulder. But that would be a Delray Beach story. How about Murray? I know Lendl lived in Vero Beach. Murray lived in Miami. Remember what you tell me. You tell me.
The first time they got together, it was at the Delray Beach Tennis Center. And it was interesting because Murray I believe he used to complain a lot, when something bothered him, and he was constantly mumbling. And in that first meeting, Lendl would go, shh, shh, shh.
That was it.
Time.
Remember you tell me that.
And he would stop right away, and that's how they started. And I think, that kind of geared them to continue working together.
There's a great book, The Man Who Made Murray, mm-hmm. and it's really a biography on Lendl. Mm-hmm. His mother was number 2 in the former Czechoslovakia.
Yep. And,
he was tied to the net post while she practiced. With Lendl, I remember Murray, what's the name of the French player who won the French Open? He was his coach.
Yannick Noah?
No, after Noah. He was...
Champion?
No, I've come up with it.
Lacan?
No, not LeConte. With one-handed backhand. He played Sampras in the famous match where Sampras vomited at the U.S. Open. Anyway, is it Alex Correia? My trivia, I'm slipping here. But with, I just remember him yelling at coaches. He was intense. And, let me back up at before we went on the air, what you said about the players. I thought was a great line is it's their job. So some of the players that are here training with us, they were ball kids. And I said, yeah, who's nice? Who's not so nice? And, and they have answers on who they thought was nice. And you said it's their job. They're out there being very, very intense, and their job is not out there. They don't need to be rude to the ball boys. I think it is a sign that lets you know who's a little bit more relaxed.
Yeah.
And then at different times.
Yeah, that's true. And different levels of maturity. From year to year, you can see how they evolve.
Yeah.
But
and the heart rate goes up too, just like Jim Lara, the competitive circle, where you're challenged, and then you work to the point where you're nervous, and the heart rate goes up, and then you get frustrated, you get angry. So that definitely happens.
And being on the court with these players, the ball kids, they get to see everything that's happening up close. I remember one year when we were in Basel, and Steve Ulrich was on the chair, and I believe it was Ferreira, Jimmy Connors, but Roger Federer was 14, and he was one of the ball kids. And he was saying that, based on how the players acted with the ball kids, he had in mind who he wanted to beat first. so, and Ferreira said he was very close with his mom, because she's I think from South Africa, and so
for our listeners, Tennis Tech. I started Tennis Tech when I was 26. Steve Ulrich is the same age. I used to say, Ulrich, you got 7 degrees. From Indiana. Actually, I think he did everything wrong as a public speaker, but he was like the best public speaker we had. And that was a big part of the program, is not just information, but presentation. You'd have that baseball hat pulled down. He'd rock the podium back and forth. And, what he told me one time, he said, he just wanted to meet with me, and he said, I'll do whatever you want me to do. Just give me 24 hours notice. Which I said, okay, fine. Because, before we came on the air, we were talking about ball kids, and I remember being in charge of the ball kids in Stowe, Vermont at a pro tournament. I tell people I was the most nervous I've ever been around tennis. It was on the finals were on TV, and it was a new tournament, and we had young ball kids that were so young. So you have some veterans. They've done it year after year.
Yeah.
So Peter Burwash, to make it was improvised, stand on your feet, think on your feet. Said, okay, Steve, why don't you go first, and you come out and train ball kids. Mm-hmm. And it was just part of a Tennis Tech workshop. But Ulrich, for our listeners, he had an interest, a very strong interest and experience before he came to Tennis Tech as an umpire. Mm-hmm. But of course, he had so many different degrees as a department head. I remember writing, you could create a way for him still to get the Tennis Tech degree and take a semester traveling. And he lived out of his car, but he's one of the best. He's called every match. I think you get on YouTube, you can definitely play some matches, and you'll see Steve Ulrich in the chair. But what I was told about Ulrich, you want to be a really good umpire. I've heard another umpire say his first year on the job, he would only say one word. The player would say something, he'd say, what time? And then, like the second year, it's 2 words, and the third year, 3 words, and he said, and that's it. He didn't go to 4 words, and that's why he's great. I remember, speaking of Lendl, I remember Lendl just chewing him out. And Ulrich had the ability. That's another thing you can learn from watching the person in the chair and how they handle what happens in a crisis. Actually, Scottie Perelman, who was on a podcast, I was at the Canadian Open. He was coaching Chris Woodruff. Richard Hernandez and I were charting it on CompuTennis and meeting with Scottie. Unfortunately, he got injured. Didn't finish the tournament, but so Ulrich meets us up. We're sitting up high in the stadium, and Perelman, we'll all meet in section F, and just go up high, and we'll all be sitting in that one section where we definitely know there's empty seats. I remember Scottie Perelman said, Smith, you know Ulrich? He said, Ulrich, if I knew you, Smith, I wouldn't have been giving you such a hard time.
Yeah, I remember one time I asked him, because I saw him in so many different countries, with the umpiring and being involved with the ATP. And one year, I think we were in Italy, and I asked him, you still doing this? And he said, well, what I love the most is watch good tennis, and I have the best seat in the house. So
he told me that his eyes were going. Now he's still working, but he's installing the equipment. Did he work Delray?
Not this year, but I've seen him every year with Hawkeye.
I remember one time being in the Clearwater Mall. They have an ice skating rink, and I'm skating around, and Ulrich, he based himself out of Clearwater. And he said years have gone by, and I think that was the only time for years that I didn't run into him tournament. I'm at this mall skating, and I just yell at Ulrich. But yeah, his path in tennis. With some stories that he could tell.
Yeah.
Let me ask this, Kevin Anderson. Your son Kuba, obviously, so he made the tournament. So he's a very good tennis player. He's done with college tennis now, still playing, dealing with some injuries, but he's had a chance to hit with a lot of people.
Yes, correct.
How many people are based in Delray? I mean, Kevin Anderson's one. Comes and goes.
Yeah, I think at one moment a lot of them moved to Orlando, especially American players. But then after the COVID, with all the restrictions around the USTA national campus, they moved to South Florida and they continue playing here. And so.
Of course, there's quite a few in Boca. I think of Boca and Delray is pretty much the same thing.
Yeah.
I do say this to players. I think it's good initially when a young junior gets to be a sparring partner for a pro, but after a while, you're just cannon fodder. I mean, the practice is not about you. So you sit there with the pro, and I know Kevin, a big guy, he's always taking care of his body, and the junior can sit courtside, and it's like, well, I'm not ready to hit yet.
Yeah. Sometimes they bring two juniors, for example, and when the player is being taken care of, the two juniors can hit with each other. Many players.
I know I've been here, and many times you give me a call, and we're just too busy because we're just like 3-4 miles from where you're living and working. Coco Goff, the Fernandez sisters, they practice there.
Yep.
When's the first time you saw Coco Goff?
Oh, she grew up in Delray.
Yeah, no. So you remember seeing her when she was really young?
Yeah, she was playing 12, 14s.
If you can dig really deep, it's on YouTube. Her working out.
Yeah.
I think Richard Woodruff, who is the fitness coach for Kevin Anderson, worked with her early on, and they were really ahead of the curve with helping her with fitness, speed, and strength. I like the Spanish. We share that all the time. I think it's a good way to put it. It's 50% tennis and 50% fitness. If you don't like
she definitely puts the work. I remember times when the tennis center was closed because it rained, and we would drive to Pompey Park, and she was working there with her dad. I mean, you could, I think she played a lot at Pompey Park. The courts on tennis. Yeah,
years ago that we talked about the movie King Richard. It was a great movie. My opinion, is a great movie. But how does it go? Hollywood beat history is that they put in all sorts of hours. It wasn't like, well, I think we're going to go to Disney for the day. We're going to go to the beach. And
no.
It was like, maybe we'll take one day a month off. It was just...
Really?
No, I think that's where, the only way it's going to work is if you work, and you just have to put the hours in. With your husband's a tennis coach. I think the advice for some is not to marry a tennis coach because they work weekends. They don't have a 9-to-5 job. But you knew going in the lifestyle. With Robert being from Poland, was it his story? I want to share that. He came over, played college tennis.
Yeah.
But he's been a coach for years now.
Yes, sorry. Yeah, he was playing in the Polish national team, and then he came to the United States, played junior college first, and then he played for South Carolina, and then he started coaching, teaching after that. Yeah, he comes from a different background. They didn't have done, mechanics was not as important where he grew up, but they have a very solid tradition of hard work. He lived during the communist times, or the end of the communist times in Poland, so he still remembers, it's fresh in his memory, what they had to go through, and what this country represents for him. I think it's they have a perspective. I would say.
There's Wojtek feedback and Wojtek Miras. Wojtek Miras, I worked with him. At the Welby Van Horn tennis camp, and he's a great player. He's the same age as Connors. He has some wins over some fantastic players. And this, I don't know what year, I'm going to guess, definitely in the 80s. I was in his hotel room, Polish players. And it was during martial law in Poland. And I'll never forget this. Polish people have to love this. So I open the door, someone knocks heavily on the door. And it's ABC Evening News, and there's 2 or 3 people, big camera, and they just come in and they're pointing the camera. And they want the Polish coach. He's with all these junior players. He's the only one who went back. Of course, he married, had children. All the kids on the team stayed. And, with political silence. So he looked right at the camera. They asked him, "Are you going to go back?" And he said, "When the rats are going," got to get it right. Drama. So the camera's pointing at him, ABC Evening News. He said, "Are you going to go back to Poland?" And he said, "When the ship's going down, the rats are the first ones to leave." And I just think, I know you're a devout Catholic, the Polish people really, during the communistic regime, the days of the former Soviet Union, they stood behind fighting for the Catholic Church. With that, listeners, I always say that if there is a tennis heaven, that person's not going. Someone is out there, they're teaching these little kids, and they're just, oh my word, you're teaching these kids and you're calling that instruction? If there's a tennis heaven, you're not going. Navarro, you're going to go to heaven. So I think that's something for the listeners too. So I forgot that he played junior college tennis. Where did he play?
Robert?
Yeah.
He played in the national Polish team.
No, but we came over here to play junior college.
Junior college. He played in, I believe it was Northern Alabama Community College. It was a time when we started looking for colleges. A lot of the foreign players, we go alphabetical order. we don't know the difference between Division I, NCAA. We just look at the book and whatever is it starts with an A. I went with the NAIA. I looked for the Barry University. Coach didn't answer. I played for Brenau University B. The next one, the first one to offer me a scholarship. And we've had a lot of experiences of players that came and ended up playing for Azusa Pacific. They want to go to California. One of the first schools in the book is Azusa Pacific. They always get very good players.
Well, there was an evolution to that. It's a great story with going by the alphabet. We were for years at TJC, Tyler Junior College, and it was really an immigration center. The teams. At first, they tried to wave the Texas flag, and then they waved the U.S. flag, and then it was like it's all foreigners. I one time was in charge of both teams on an interim basis, but it was a full semester, and it was just Scott Stewart. Between the men and the women, there was only one American.
Yeah, I remember.
But I would say that kids, they didn't know the difference between TJC and USC. Of course, now we had Carlos Gaffion, his son's running a great program at USC, University of South Carolina. But for years, if you said USC, it was always University of Southern Cal. But people wouldn't know the difference. Mm-hmm. And the level of play in junior college, I mean, Pernforce, for example, played junior college tennis. He won 2 NJCAs, and then he won 2 NCAs. That's an amazing record. Mm-hmm. Now we have 2 teams in Florida for men. At one point, there was 32. Mm-hmm. And I do think that a lot of the U.S. kids, listeners, they turn their nose up at a junior college, and they really shouldn't. Because, you go to junior college, it means you get a chance to go to another college.
Yep.
You get a chance to remarket yourself. I don't really like that term, but you go and you can go and just play 1 year. It used to be if you were a qualified student, you had to get a certain score above the SAT mark, about 800. When it was 1,600, now it's back to 1,600. So if you got 800 or below, you would have to graduate from a junior college. Mm-hmm. But, it's not where you start, it's where you finish. I do think there's lots of kids that, in my opinion, they make a mistake because they don't want to play at a lower level school. Their bar was set so high, and they're not good enough. But to go and be part of a team, I would say with college, I mean, almost straight across the board is every kid who plays college tennis. Of course, now all these years later, I know so many kids who played college tennis. It was the greatest experience, best years of their lives.
No, definitely. He played 1 year for in Alabama in this community college, and then he transferred to Anderson College at the time. And it was also a college. They played against Tyler Junior College in Tyler.
Well, you were there working with me when we ran the tournament.
Yes.
I think it was 4 years. I'm pretty sure 4 years where I was the director of the tournament.
And Robert played for Ned Caswell at Anderson College. And then they played Georgia, University of Georgia, and they lost 4-3. They had a very good team at this.
So he played it. He played at Anderson?
Yes, he played in.
So he played at 2 different junior colleges.
Yes, and then the last 2 years he went to South Carolina.
Yeah, I need to go back to the drawing board, but I think Jim Boykin, I think his son now is the coach at UNC. He was at UNC Charlotte, but he was a coach at Anderson. They were very, very successful, and they won national championships. But Bal Moore, and I can't have the names wrong, this so many years ago, but Bal Moore, I heard this from Bal Moore. He said, best thing about foreign players is their parents only visit once every 4 years. Tennis parents should know that once your child plays, once they set, the honeymoon's over, they've gone through recruiting, the coach doesn't really want to talk to the parents. Now they're 18 years old, and if they're going to be successful, they need to be able to make decisions and handle themselves in the right way. But Bal Moore also you got really involved with wheelchair tennis.
Oh.
That was so many years ago. But there's so many characters when you get to meet. That's one thing about running a big tournament. The pro tournament, obviously, that's completely different. You meet so many people. I know you've had a lot to do with Delray Beach Open, but the junior college, it's just the characters, the coaches. And the old Mark Twain thing, you can learn from everyone. Who's the coach? I should be able to guess. Who coached your husband at South Carolina?
Ken
DeMars.
Yeah.
Ken DeMars actually coached Robbie Seguzo and Ken Flack.
Correct. Yeah.
It wasn't in South Carolina though, or was it?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I think he moved up after that. But yeah, he was their coach. I have to look that up, trivia, at a different school. So he was his coach there for 2 years. Did he go straight into coaching after that, Robert?
Yeah. He went right after that. He wanted to stay. He studied sports management, sports psychology. It was like like a major put together that would give him a better chance to be in tennis. He should have done the tennis tech, but
Tennis Tech.
but
My game was a wreck before I went to Tennis Tech. With the Tennis Tech program really could have been a graduate program.
yeah,
With South Carolina was known for international business at one.
Correct.
That comes to my mind. Yeah.
Yes.
With at Tennis Tech, we threw so much at students at Tennis Tech. I just think learning is, now meetings, if someone comes now, I mean, if they went through our podcast and they knew the history, you were there, and we certainly didn't call the curriculum the GreatBase, but what we were doing in the 80s, working with, certainly before I started, Welby Van Horn, Vic Braden, and Dennis Vandermeer. I had been trained by all of them, but that was pre-internet, so it was, even to this day, people are teaching tennis. They just don't know the history, who the teachers were back in the day. I get so many things on my phone. Someone just sent me a text, and it was a picture of Vic Braden's book, Tennis for the Future.
Yep.
And found it on eBay. One was $50, and they waited, and they found one for $20. And I sent a text back to him, and I said, that should be mandatory reading for all coaches. And the text back was, and for all parents. It's just there, and all that fact-based information stands the test of time.
Yep. No, the influence and then you see the connections. People that have studied, Big Braden or somehow were part of that. All over the world, you hear people and coaches or players that have influenced through their coaches.
No, I think with the work Andy Fitzell did on Instagram over a 2-year period, I've had people tell me that, now the language of a palm down serve, like it's something that's novel, and it's just the way you throw a ball, and people, again, 2 levels of ignorance. They don't know, and people are around tennis, and tennis, I always say, it comes through the phone, it comes through the mailbox, it comes through the TV, and everybody talks about tennis, but it's just like the old adage where there are 2 types of talk at a tournament. There's small talk and there's fact finding, and it's just amazing. With we talked a little bit about La Paz and red clay and high altitude. And European tennis, we talk about that. With back in the day, the lessons in the States, you got the basket of balls out. Every court had 300 balls. That became like the American lesson, just feed balls.
Yep.
And no hand tossing. Years ago, it was always that, but that went away. But in Europe, for the longest time, you just go on the court with 6 balls. The person on the other side of the net would just be hitting balls. And you think about that, is that if you can get someone to rally, forget technique, but just get them to rally, set the racket, like Dennis Vandermeer, boopy boop.
Yep.
Where he puts a tennis ball on the court, people face off, and they just bump the ball back and forth. That, then they're rallying. Then they're rallying, and then hopefully they catch the bug where, okay, I'd like to be able to do this better.
Yeah.
With what are your thoughts? In you and your husband, 7 or 8 years now. It's winters in Florida and summers in Belgium.
Yeah. It's they have a very good system of summer tournaments. So many matches. I mean, I remember in France they had over 2,000 money tournaments during the summer. Belgium, you can play up to 70 matches in 10 weeks. That's what my kids have played in the past. They have a short summer, but it's very intense. You can have matches up to 1 a.m. in the morning. But
They have it's a short summer because not the weather, but because of the school system.
The school system, it finishes end of June, so the tournament starts in middle of June, end of June, and they go all the way to August. Yeah.
And it's right there, right next to Germany. So the Germans, I mean, David Squire, your son's going to play for him this summer, right?
Correct.
In Dusseldorf, and one summer he's so nice to let us come in, and all his members leave for 7 weeks. The kids are out of school. The Germans all go on vacation. The club is empty for 7 weeks, and we brought 25 kids from 9 countries.
Wow.
But so but the people from Belgium, the kids are around the summer. They don't travel on vacations as much.
They do, but a lot of them do travel 1 or 2 weeks, and then they do summer camps the rest of the summer. And so they play tournaments every week, and they don't go to the tournaments with the parents. They go with the coaches, and the coaches are really emphasizing sportsmanship. Tennis etiquette is very important over there. They try not to have referees. The tournaments have the referees, but the referees really try not to get involved, and they let the kids figure out and understand each other and come up to an agreement. That's what's really emphasized. And little things like a handshake are very important, how you do the handshake, and you sweep the court after you're done.
Do you sit down for a drink with the person you play?
And you sit out for a drink. The winner invites the losing player for a drink, and they get to spend some time together and talk about the match, or and it creates a different atmosphere, and it's good for there is a life around the tournaments. In all the tournaments have a restaurant, a place where people hang out. And then also the kids grow up in their own clubs with their own coaches, and they don't change programs very often. It's more like they are more like family. They do it every year.
No bopping and shopping, the loyalty, that's huge.
Yeah.
We always say that one bad coach is better than 10 different coaches. With going back to Steve Ulrich and the referee, the umpire in the chair. You've been in so many countries, I'm going to guess it, when you grew up in Bolivia, that you had to, you're in the tournament, but you actually had to be up in the umpire's chair, be the arbitrator, announce the score. Is that right?
Yes. And the next match, you do the, no, unless, I think if you win the match, you don't, but whoever loses the match has to be the umpire of the next match.
Yeah, and they have a big umbrella, and you climb up in the chair. It's just great there's so much learning from a young kid to, okay, now you have to work a match. Yeah. And you're actually watching a match and how they interact with one another. Yeah. I know I plan on doing this tomorrow with 3 young girls, is have them play rotating sets and have one person stand at the net post and be the arbitrator. Mm-hmm. So they call their own lines, but if there's a conflict, then the person at the net post, just like, they sometimes will ask an adult to come out on the court and you stand at the net post, be the arbitrator.
Yeah, but over there they don't. I remember because I was helping with the tournament one time, and I saw a close call, and as soon as I saw this agreement, I was walking towards to check the mark, and the coaches that were with both players say, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm just going to check." He said, "No, they have to figure it out with each other," and then they would really praise them for good sportsmanship, and so the kids were really trying to make an impression on the coaches, and I thought that was really neat.
Referees are a little bit more stern. The kid they don't walk on the other side of the net unless they get permission.
No, not it's only in the tournaments that have like close to ATP level. You have the umpires, but in all the other orange ball, green ball, none of those, they try to leave them alone.
Anytime you've been around tennis tournaments, you've definitely seen this, where I walk into a tennis facility tournament director runs up to me, "You have to help me right now." And they said, okay. And asked me to be arbitrator. Two dads that got into a fist fight. Famous story, I believe it was Dick Stockton and Harold Solomon. Their fathers got into a pushing match. And then afterwards, things kind of settled down. They were looking for the sons, Dick Stockton and Harold Solomon. And they were swimming together.
Yeah.
But no, I think that people need to learn. I always think of Ty Tucker. If those two were to play 10 times, who wins? My son's first day at Ohio State, he transferred. And actually, he thought he did quite well. He went to the ITA Summer Nationals. They have the circuit and they have the Nationals, and he had a bad sprained ankle. And he felt they had a pretty good tournament. He got to the semis, and he won the doubles. So they're driving back, and I guess they had like 4 players lose tiebreakers, and they stop, and Tucker's going, we're doing something wrong. We lost 4 tiebreakers, and they said, welcome to Ohio State tennis. It was no like, hey, that's great, you guys won the doubles. There was no pat on the back. You don't need a pat on the back most of the time. You need a kick in the butt. But no, I think with the loyalty playing for the club, I think that many players can get to a level where in Germany they can play club tennis and maybe make $3,000 a match. Depends on what league. But in Belgium and in France, you can be paid, but it's less money than Germany, correct?
Yeah, I believe the most money they make is playing tournaments,
not playing on teams.
No, there's not that many teams that are at that level. But at the grassroots level, it's a lot of them organized teams, and they play against each other. So they do a lot of traveling. Most of the summer camps have instructional camp in the morning, but the afternoon is going to tournaments with the kids that are. And you can play in 2 tournaments in the same week. So, one van goes to one tournament, another van goes to another tournament, and until they are done, and then the next week again. So.
And the players are from all over in the summers, or mostly Belgium.
The grassroots level, it's mostly Belgium kids, but then at the
futures.
In the future, they used to have 12 futures in the summer.
Yeah, I was going to ask.
Belgium, yeah, that was really nice, and then you had also the money tournaments in between.
I think that, the money's gone down considerably, but Bundesliga, I remember being actually in this area, Boca Raton, the old Seguzo Bassett, which is now Chris Everett's.
Yeah.
And Gavin Hopper was a fitness trainer, got a PhD in exercise technology, and he was coaching Wally Massour. I remember those guys were, and Gavin was so fit. They were running 5-minute miles. That's kind of a flashback because we really have kids do a lot of running.
Yeah.
But I remember before the U.S. Open, he flew. He flew over, played his match, flew back, which ideally is not the best prep. Dave Anderson, who was with me, another classmate of yours, he tells me that while he came back, got to the semis. I know he got to the quarters of I think every Grand Slam, but I don't think enough American kids know the ins and outs of playing in Europe. I mean, I've told so many kids, don't think about playing for points initially. You played college tennis, on a hard court, go to France, go to Roland Garros, get rated, and just play. And you're going to have to eat some humble pie because you're going to be losing to some 15, 16-year-old whiz kids.
They have a lot of match experience, the kids. They develop their skills a little bit different because they don't get too much coaching. The coaches in general try to get them develop their own skills and coach themselves. So there is just reinforcing things that they did and stuff like that. It's very much a self-taught type of program. Just like in the umpiring, they try not to intervene too much. The same thing with the tennis play. They just offer all kinds of opportunities to do exercises or certain drills, but they try to stay back.
Sounds similar to France. It's pretty easy to remember.
That's right.
We have 5 times as many people in the U.S. France has 5 times as many players, but it's based on play.
Yep.
With, well, I call this nice lady Navarro. Usually first thing I say to her is, Navarro, you've done any push-ups today? With, I promised I wouldn't quiz you, but Greg Prezzuto, PTR, Tennis Munchkins.
Mm-hmm.
He did a great job. I remember him coming out to Tennis Tech. Dennis Vandermeer helped him so much with giving him the opportunity to make a big contribution on how to teach young kids. Tell us about young kids in Belgium, because that's really where the transitional balls come from, right? The red,
Yes,
the
correct,
red, the
yes.
orange.
Mm-hmm. They have the transition balls start with the white ball. It's a ball about this size that 4-year-olds tend to roll it between each other, different exercise, mostly on the ground, 2-dimensional. Then they put them on like a square, like a mini tennis square. They raise it a net. There's space underneath the net. They use a smaller ball, which is the blue ball. And then they get to do drills, cross courts, down the lines, a combination of drills. Sometimes you have to, hit the ball, let's say cross court, and then one goes down the line and the other one goes for the open court, and that starts the point. And a lot of drills like that. And the way you score in this type of game is you put 2 goals at the end of the court, and whoever passes that, that line, which ends up being the single sideline, scores the point. You try to win goals, basically. Everything at the 2-dimensional, everything at the ground level, like hockey. And they learn to turn, they learn to run, they learn to direct the ball, and they learn to rally, basically, staying long time in the rally.
I think around the world, when you say hockey, a lot of times it's all the same, but it's field hockey.
Field hockey.
Not ice hockey, but it's
Yeah.
when it comes down to hanging on to the the stick and propelling the mallet or propelling the object, the ball.
Yeah.
With Kleisters and Helen, they both are products of the little kid system in Belgium, correct?
Correct. And they both have academies. Academies now that they have 700 kids in each of those programs. But every club in Belgium has tons of kids. Any decent club has between 500 to 700 kids. Most of them play 1 or twice a week, and that's 1 hour or 2 hours a week. But
I'm not saying I'm a socialist, but socialism, capitalism, there's not enough working together. I think the pros here are, pushing, and it's like, this is the way I do it, And we like to tell people we have a system of systems. It's, it's not like, this is how he does it. That's not really the case. But tell us about your connection. You actually work quite a bit, you and your husband, Robert, with Justine Helen, right?
Yeah, very strong grassroots program, like every club. It's a playground. The whole facility becomes a playground. They do not have as much space in Belgium, so everything is concentrated. You can have 16 kids in one court, and then she has like six courts lined up side by side, so you can see a lot of kids after. It's all after school programs. But they do have all the way a progression all the way to the professional level. They have players that are playing in the pro tour. They usually stay and work at different times. So that would be mostly in the morning when the kids are in school. They have the facility to themselves.
I think that's a great thing with a lot of the clubs in Europe, where if you play for the team and they help you out in some way financially, is you have to help out the kids. There's a connection teaching the kids.
Yeah, there's different depending how much money the player is getting, because if they get sponsorship, then they are on the road most of the time.
But Hen's facility, indoor, outdoor?
Yeah, it's a farm. She bought an old farm and converted in the tennis facility. She added a couple more indoors, and they in the summer they opened the sides of the indoors. It's really nice because it rains a lot in Belgium, and they also have the hard courts, and inside I believe they have a hard true. No, sorry, they have hard courts indoors. Outside they have red clay.
I think for our listeners, if you get on YouTube and you watch Kleisters or Helen hit the ball, I mean, you have to see the fundamentals. You just have to see how they hit. And Helen, being so small, she was asked, she played a one-hand backhand, and said, what happened when you were really young? She goes, I lost a lot. But Pat Etchenberry, I went through his course one time with either the USPTA or PTR, so the specialty course, but another time where it was just his course. And I tried not to be too rude because each time I had taken a fitness instructor with me. And I certainly was there to learn as well, but I just loved asking the stories. And I said, tell us one story about Justine Henin. He said, well, she's already been practicing for 3.5 hours, and we're ready to go, but she misses one ball. And she's like, we got to stay. And there, next thing you know, another 30 minutes. Just, and that is just great for kids to hear that. Just, you got to be a practice animal. We have kids where they can stay in an area where they can walk to a nice park. There's because it's 3-wall racquetballs, 16 lighted backboards. Say, okay, you don't go alone, but go with one of the other players. Get your schoolwork done. That's number one. But every night, or then just coming back to your dad, Willie, is that let's hit cross court. Let's just hit cross court. And not missing, just it's just like kids playing catch with a soccer ball, passing whatever it is, basketball back and forth, this over and over again. Just Jim Lair said that the number one thing for someone to be a great tennis player. I like that steel, baby, steel. You remember meeting John Verdi? He used to come to Tennis Tech. He used to define. This is how you define research. He'd say with his country accent, "Steel, baby, steel." And Lair says if it's that kid's drug and they just have to hit balls, they just got to hear that ping, they got to hear the string, ball coming off the strings, the feeling through their arm, they just got to hit a ball. Then you have someone that this kid could be really, really good. They just love to hit tennis balls.
Yeah, some of the players of the years in the past, they would go crazy indoors, and they had to go outside and do something, whether it was hitting tennis balls or running or playing soccer, and now that's not happening anymore. So,
well, the term here in the U.S., gym rat. I think with Steph Curry, with what he does shooting a basketball, is obviously, and people said, oh, he's too small, and he went to Davidson. And did so well there, and now in the pros. People should have young kids go to YouTube and just put in Pistol Pete. It's not Pistol Pete Sampras, but Pete Maravich, and just what he could do with the basketball. And I showed some slow motion to a young kid the other day from Boston, and I said, "This is what Dennis Vandermeer said." Showed him in slow motion. Of course, he looks like a baby colt. He's almost 6 feet tall. He's just 13, and his legs go out at the bottom like a cartoon character. And I said, you got to do lower body. You could do really light weights, but just lifting your own body, your body weight. Your body's a gym. So,
Steve, I was going to ask you about you learning to play tennis here in the Delray Beach area.
No, let me do. Yeah, I'll do that. But let me do this with. I think there's value in that, but so this kid, I gave him slow motion. It's like, okay, let's go through his forehand and backhand, and I have people helping me out that can do the slow motion really well. But this is what I show the kid in slow motion: picking the ball up. Dennis Vandermeer would say, "Stoop it over and pick it up." I go, I never again bend over. He's a lefty, bends over, picks the ball up with his right hand. I go, never ever do that again. And then people just think that here's this old man, he's been in the sun too long, and it's like, what is he telling me? But then, you got to tell them again. So, hey, let me see you go pick that ball up. Here's the racket. Let me see you go pick the ball up. And just tell them. Learning tennis in this area, you came to the U.S., of course, you connect with your cousins, so that makes it a little easier. You have family. So you have to, did you get off the boat and not know one person? So when you came over in that Tyler, Texas area, you had Mickey Navarro and his family. So I decided, which people thought was a crazy idea because I loved ice hockey, but I knew I wasn't going to make the NHL. And my brother was like, well, he's studying hockey and he's making a living and study tennis. And then so many different stories. But back in the day at Hitchhike, and I met this gentleman, Dave Eddy. He's 10 years older than I am. And that's where I was first exposed to a tennis club. My mother, 100 years ago, her birthday's today, is that I still have her high school letter from Utica, New York, where she played tennis. Most of the time she just hit in the road. But she played tennis. And but I had zero background because, World War II came along. My mother really didn't have anything to do with tennis. Tiebreaker came up. And it's a crazy idea. I'm going to go. But I was told you have to learn how to play. So I'm very proud of the fact I got on an airplane and I flew to Fort Lauderdale. I got off the airplane and I knew zero. I knew nobody. And this is back in the day with telephone booths. And I just got a van. And I was told that Boca's a wealthy area and I could work nights, take the role of starving artist. And I remember going back to that telephone booth. Now it's not there. There's no telephone booths. But he took me right to the Deerfield Boca line.
Okay.
And, I think perhaps I had a little adventure spirit because I went away to boarding school. And, I can remember my parents just leaving me in the dorm, my own room. And, of course, I was like, Mom, leave me alone. Mom, leave me alone. I got it, Mom. I got it. And I really didn't have it because I had brought my older brother's dress shoes. They were too big for me. So I have to wear these shoes that are too big and go down to the cafeteria. Didn't know which building it's in. But I think a lot of times people don't have those type of experiences. So, but that was a little bit easier than getting off an airplane a few years later. And I knew I had to find a place to stay. I was going to rent a place for a week, and I did. Then I had to find a place to live. Just rent a room in a house, and then I found a small efficiency by the beach. I had to find a job. And, so I go in, I'm interviewed, and, I grew up privileged. The next thing I know, I'm a busboy in the nicest restaurant in Boca Raton. And I remember Billy Graham. I remember bussing his table, and Billy Graham talking to me. It's like I'm the busboy, and Billy Graham said, "Tell me about yourself. I'm the busboy." And but shortly afterwards, I did a little bartending. But I, for the most part, I was a professional car hop. People say they have their CPA. I used to say I have my PLA, parking lot attendant. And I had no idea. I thought I could play a little bit because I played in prep school my last year. And I made the hockey team, I made the tennis team. But the year before, now going on, I get back to Delray, is at Boca Raton. I knew nothing about nothing. I basically knew what end of the racket to hang on to. But I was privileged, so going off to this prep school, so my parents get a job for her. I get my dishwasher at a boys' camp in the Adirondack Mountains. I don't think people do that so much anymore. The more you are given, the worse it is. So then this prep school, my headmaster was very liberal, and then he let the hockey team practice. They didn't have to play sport in the spring, and that was a major mistake. We just played street hockey every day in the old gym, and so then I go to prep school, hockey school, not hockey school. We went to Oswego, SUNY Oswego, State University of New York Oswego, right on Lake Ontario. I go over to the tennis team, and the guy puts me on the tennis team. I went home and I beat the high school Tri-Valley champion, but I grew up in a place where there's more cows than people. So I think, hey, this is my game. Then I went to Florida. 12-year-old girls wouldn't hit with me. But
Jeff Bingo remembers you, the director of the Delray Beach Tennis Center.
Jeff Bingo, Scott Wittenberg who we got to get Scott on this podcast, his brother Kim. So Scott, he actually played college tennis with Craig O'Shaughnessy, the Brain Game. So Scott was a very good tennis player, but Scott was sent to me when he was just right out of high school. He was only 17. And I remember it was just those days, I mean, okay, this is what you're going to do. I got him into a piano class at FAU so he could live in the dorm. So, yeah, so he was very good. Jeff Bingo was younger, and Jeff Bingo was not nearly as tall as Wittenberg. And there was a photo, I remember, and Brent Wellman, who works for Jeff Bingo now, director of Delray Tennis Center. And it just happened to be that Wittenberg had called me. Wittenberg coached Dustin Brown. He was coaching Dustin Brown when Dustin Brown beat Nadal at Wimbledon. And that really helped Craig O'Shaughnessy because he was sitting courtside with Scott Wittenberg. And, that gave him some ink. That's still part of his story as far as getting recognized in pro tennis. But that was when by the time Scott came, I had been, 5 years. I played tennis like 7 years, but I was so competitive that I had to get him to the crossroads. Like, okay, I remember I was at Tyler Junior College. We had no respect from the players. They looked down upon the tennis teaching students. Yep. And that was before you were there. When I was there, it's like, okay, I'm running, I'm going to the gym, and I'm, your husband was asking me about Florida. Somebody you know is being recruited by other SEC schools, and I was telling him about how I know Scottie Perelman. Scottie Perelman was the coach at Kansas. He had a player from Tyler Junior College, Franco. And when Scottie won the Big Eight, Franco was in his lineup. And at that time, I had not lost to Franco. And I go, Pearl, I can still play on your team. But no, I stopped playing because I was so competitive that it was like, I'm not here, to macho male ego. So I think people have to get to that crossroads. I mean, some people, brain typing comes into it. The way my brain's wired as a J, it's like I have to practice 4 or 5 hours a day. But no, I hit balls all day. And I hit balls, I was poorly taught. And the more I read, the more I listened, when you hang onto a hockey stick, your top hand is a continental, your bottom hand is Eastern. So all of a sudden I could hit a backhand. And then I started hitting a two-handed backhand volley. I remember being told to change it, where I had to knife it and slice down and chip. And so I spent all these hours in the hot sun. One thing to help me because I ran cross country. One time I never did again because I was gutless. I ran a 15:21, 3 mile. And the only reason I ran that was that a cross-country coach played a trick on me. I was running 3 on this team because I was just telling myself getting in shape for hockey. But I had this base where I would run 10 miles just about every day because I lived on this lake. That helps me to this day. People say, how can you work all these hours? So when I was a kid, I used to run 10 miles a day. And I thought that was going to make me a better hockey player. It was just bad information. That's the last thing you want to do, for your legs if you're a hockey player. It's an anaerobic sport. And I just think of where I grew up in these 3 hills, if I was told what to do, I was doing the wrong thing. And but also too the mobility from being on a pair of skates. Yeah. But I was not that I was I'm 5 foot nothing, 100 nothing, but kids today that just are playing one sport. But I was taught so poorly how to hit the ball. But the more I listened, and next thing you know, I'm being trained by Vandermeer. Then I was trained by Braden. Actually before that, Van Horn. By the time I was at Tyler Junior College, I pretty much know about. It's almost like I know now what I knew back then. By the time I was 26, as far as the nuts and bolts of teaching tennis, this is how you hit the ball efficiently, and then to have the eye for it. Then there's always the group dynamics, and Andy Fitzgerald calls me Rambo, because back in the day, we could talk about that at Tyler Junior College when you have 100 students. And then you have 80 people come out for a community clinic. Yep. And it's like, I have to wear a whistle. Yeah. But no, I worked with someone for a year and a half before they told me I had a continental grip on the forehand side. And their son was a very good player, and he was on the bottom part of 3. But it was just a matter of hitting balls.
Yeah.
But it hasn't, that's our effort with, GreatBase, and I hope here around the corner to put a few things together where we can, someone said that the tennis intelligence course needs to be 2.0. But no, I remember, because when you really are passionate and you really want to get better at something, if someone tells you something and, you're working nights and you're taking 1 hour lesson a week and, and I try different pros and, you're out and you practice that. You practice that not for hours or weeks, but months. And then you find out, hey, kid, you're doing it the wrong way.
Yeah.
And the myths are still there. Now I think that, people aren't, we just had this workshop and people were asking about the grip on the volley. And that's very unusual. It's pretty much just the forehand. And then people watch what we do. I was telling somebody today, which is a positive, I'm telling him Joe Denoffer, who worked for Burwash and came he was a presenter with PBI at Tyler Junior College Tennis Tech. And he's done a great job with his on-court, off-court.
Yeah.
I said to parents, well, this is one-stop shop. There's so many things that you need to buy from on-court, off-court. Yeah. But they have one thing you don't want to buy. It's a clicker. You put it on your wrist.
Oh.
And when
I know which one.
And when you hear the click, that means you have a good forehand. And I remember telling Joe, I said, no, it's just the opposite. If you don't hear the click, it's a good forehand. I remember Joe coming out watching a player from Germany, a player from Russia who stayed at your house, young kids. And remember Joe coming out watching me work with him at David Anderson's place at Brookhaven, and he said, when are you going to let him loosen up? You can just get a knee-jerk reaction. Never. Braden, after they win nationals, they're going to loosen up. Breathe, relax. Just teaching like a Vandermeer how you would teach someone to hit an off-pace passing shot. But all day, every day. And then I can remember, this is probably one of the best stories to share for our listeners, is I remember being asked by an older man to play doubles. I'm hitting the backboard, banging the ball, not knowing what I'm doing. They say, hey, we're missing a fourth. You want to play doubles? So he said, yeah. So I grabbed my bag. By the time I went over there, they said, oh, we found somebody else. Meanwhile, months before that, I'm on a college hockey team, and it's like these old men just said, we found somebody better. So it was humble pie. But I remember it was small time in many ways, but it was a Boca Raton doubles final, city championships. And that's what Bingo was in. It was he played with Jim O'Brien, and but I remember the man who kind of snubbed me. He said, "No, we found somebody better." And I became friendly with him over the years, being a perennial tennis player with Boca Raton. But he was a lines person, and so I became one of the better players in Boca. But it's now, I would never even, I get to be ranked 19 in Florida, that now nobody's playing, open tournaments.
Yeah.
It's not like the age group tournaments. It used to be you had to play to qualify. Now it's, you just sign up but unlike yourself, to flip it around here, I started really taking some lessons at 19, but you learn really young. Yeah, so.
Yeah, but for me, it was also an adjustment coming from South America, because we never played volleys. We never went to the net, all we had to do was just hit high top spins, and that was it. And, of course, swinging across the body, and, it was a different.
Peter Burwash used to say that the kids that are the easiest to teach are the ones that have never seen pros play.
Yeah.
And there's a guy who may still have the record for going to the most countries. We have said on this podcast that we think Raven Klaassen may have him beat because he's been to every country in Africa, or pretty much. But back in those days, now kids, this is on YouTube,
Oh yeah.
Actually, you're talking to somebody, and they could be taking notes, but they could also
No, probably not.
probably they could be just looking at YouTube clip. I mean, actually, today, when kids are playing, when they're you're gonna watch a movie, you have to tell kids today, no phones, because if you let them have a phone, they'll be working their phone while they're watching the movie.
Yeah.
Then you have to ask them afterwards, what you think of the movie, and they've got one word to describe it: good. And then you got to be the bad cop. Tell us about Natalia and Monica. I know Natalia's here. We've only been back in this area for 4 months. She's hung out with us the most. Tell us about Monica and Natalia, their tennis.
Yeah.
And also, too, even more on your oldest son played at USF, played for Ashley Fisher all 4 years?
Correct. He played for Ashley Fisher, and he started at the bottom of the lineup. And little by little, he worked his way up.
The COVID, it
There
helped
were
him out,
some-
right, with having the super year, perhaps?
Yeah, the extra half year that he got. But no, it was a good experience. He went through his struggles on his own, far from mom and dad, of course.
So he did make the lineup, but then he ends up playing in the tournament. That's a good climb. That's a transition.
Yeah, he was, and some of the coaches remembered him from playing his freshman year and losing to, like the coach from TCU, Roditi was. I remember when he lost to my player 0-0, and then watching him develop throughout. But it's been a struggle for him. Some years were very difficult, especially with the academics, because he had to do. It was not an easy transition to go from homeschooling to the regular structure way of studying at the university. So
I know that some kids, what they do is they go back to regular school once they sign, or even maybe their senior year, they go back.
No, I definitely that would be,
Or even do a hybrid where they're doing maybe 3 classes.
Yeah, that's a great idea, because then you see the reality of what it is to be in a real class.
No, I mean, obviously, I was around your son and just saw him here and there where he was from a toddler to a college tennis player. And he's trying to play now. He's done. He's playing.
Yeah, he's trying to play. Started in the summer, and trying to figure out what his game is all about, what his real motivation is, and all of that. And yeah, he's in the journey. And
I
my
know
daughter's
Shuri Khan, 2 nephews are good tennis players. I've seen your son practicing with that group. I think stick-to-itiveness. We're talking about Stefan Kozlov.
Yeah, that was very
with
nice.
cramps.
Nice. Yeah.
Appreciate some of the comments that you made about, before, okay, he doesn't have the biggest weapons, whatever, but he's still out there, he's still playing. But for our listeners, when people have cramps, that's when they start to play well. Mentally, they're going to be playing really well because they're thinking, maybe I can just play one more point. Just play one more point. And when they're cramping, they're not thinking about winning. Again, they're thinking about playing one more point. And to break it down even further than that, it's like, no, I just want to play one more ball. One more ball. With, for me, I think that you want to get to the point where you're your own coach. I think when you're in college, you and I have talked about that, where college coaches do so much for the players.
Yeah.
But one thing you don't see, the futures level, from my experience, Vic Braden, if you're playing futures for 3 years, there is no future. That, they can't afford a coach generally, but if they could pair up and say, okay, you film me, you chart me, to find someone, okay, let's play doubles together, but let's find out what we need to work on.
Yeah.
Actually, one time with Craig Tiley, who you went to school with you were with him every day for 3 years basically. We had this idea of having a program called it was GoPro or Pro International, GoPro International, and there was a gentleman in the Tampa St. Peters area. Initially, I mean, he sponsored Raven Klaassen and a couple other players, and where we just would have a base. Because many times the people that are coaching on the futures level, they're young coaches, and they're not they're not charging very much because their players can't pay them very much.
Correct.
And they're young, and they don't really have much knowledge. And if so if they had the mothership, it's okay. We're going to go here and find okay, what can I do to be more consistent off the ground? And it's not like they have to rebuild their game totally. It's like Lee Trevino, the golfer, said. If you have a leaky faucet, you don't have to take the roof off the house to fix the leaky faucet. But there's just not any feedback. With of course, then at the very, very top, and I think it's a little overrated with the information exchange. But at the very top, the top players, I mean, they have their own entourage. But we'll talk about the daughters. But why don't you make some comments off of that?
I mean, they're just, developing. It's basically, I guess it's just developing for everyone at a different stage. But girls pretty much grew up around tennis, and right at this moment they are, in South Florida playing some of these tournaments. And my youngest is playing few ITFs around in the area, in the Caribbean, because it's the most economical way to compete with your age group.
So you have to think of the exchange rates, and your niece spent a lot of time in South America playing as a junior, right?
Yeah, I think mostly when she started playing, I think it was satellite level or future level. That's when she started.
But not as a junior.
No, she hasn't. Yeah, not so much. She played mostly in Florida, but it was difficult to win in Florida. So I think it is difficult to win in Florida. It's just so packed with players of very good level. And,
through Arvin Don, I wouldn't say I was the coach, but for 2 years, I know Andy Fitzell was with me 1 year. We went to the U.S. Open. Did some training before with Ram Ramanathan. And there's a guy who's gone anywhere and everywhere.
Yeah.
A lot of the U.S. kids, they just want to stay in the U.S.
Yeah.
And, there's been some U.S. coaches said, hey, let's go elsewhere instead of just playing each other. Let's go elsewhere. And, but I
think there is a value of traveling, getting used to the different languages, different food, different altitudes, the different court surface, and because I think sooner or later they're going to have to face, different, whether it is the weather or the altitude, or it's different to play in Mexico than it is to play in Florida, and it takes 10 days to get used to that bounce of the ball and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that's where, again, sending my son out to Arizona and having you there to help out, and he's there the week before. I've done that many times. Okay, my son is, okay, you're going to go play here and play in tournaments out in California, so I've trained these people at this academy. Why don't you go there first? And you don't just get off the airplane and have to play. You tune up like the pros and get used to the conditions exactly. But I think with your son at 23, I think a lot of times, even in teen and junior tennis, the kids 15, 16, they start thinking they're too old. Yeah. And no way. I mean, you just have to say, and I don't think it's fair to say they're a lifer. I don't really like that term, but they're just not going away. They're just not going away.
Doing what you love to do.
No, but also too is that even a lot of the ATP guys. I mean, you can, if you want, you can be online and be working on an undergraduate or master's degree. Ram Ramanathan put himself through college, but most of them don't do that. They hit twice a day. They're, some playing fantasy football, and they're just, if you're with the ATP, if you want to get a master's, it's available. If you just, but that just not going away and being in there for the long term. But again, at 15 to 16-year-old teenager, they're starting to think they're too old. And I do think when it comes down to myelin count, I had a Russian dad tell me this. Said, well, my son started when he was 9, so some kids start when they're 4. So he's 5 years behind. Daniel Coyle, the talent coach, he's 5 years behind. Anders Ericsson, the building, the developing of myelin.
Yeah, but I think the emotional part is also a big part of it. And, the hunger, the taste of it, and like, if you're really motivated and you love what you're doing versus somebody who's played for a long time and it becomes very repetitive. And I think there's different stages and different levels of the love for the game.
No, that's where the individual and the spark. Hopefully, Kuba playing over in Germany with Dave Anderson. It'd be great if he could connect with Henry Squire.
Yeah.
We have film of Henry Squire from the age of 6, and now I think he's 6'6".
Yeah.
But he hit the ball really clean, and he got away from it. And that's the same thing I would say with Kuba, is that what is going on with your racket head? Go back. But now that you're done, don't think that you need coaching. You do need coaching. You need another set of eyes. You need a support system. But it's just amazing with telling a young kid, get a GoPro, put it up on the fence, film the set, go home, chart, look at it. And, I just don't think that, especially in beating up the U.S. kids, but they're just not, like somebody else does that for me. It's like, no, okay, I'm going to learn to use the equipment. I'm going to learn to break down the technique. I'm going to learn to do the stats. And, even when you look at the booth, Delray Beach Open or all these other pro tournaments, junior tournaments you've been to, travel around the world, is how many people do you see with a clipboard? Now, once again, you see them working their phone.
Yeah.
I doubt very seriously that 5% are charting.
Yeah.
But that's where jockocracy. Then you have people that have they just have that gift to talk to jocks, talk to athletes.
Yep.
Craig Carden, he said about coaching world team tennis, you got to talk all day and say nothing. And I do think around the very top pros, people walk on eggshells.
Yeah.
And again, if the coach doesn't really trust the players, how many players are really making even a slight adjustment, even if it's tactics,
Yeah, no, definitely.
But I think that 10 years from now, at 23, if someone like your son, that's what he really wants to do. But at the same time, certainly he could study tennis. Say, well, I could teach and coach. Mm-hmm. He wouldn't. I would recommend. I would say this is that you don't want to be a glorified sparring partner. Just he hits the ball well, and people would. Your son plays well enough. I remember saying this about my son. He plays well enough to make $100,000 a year, because people will pay him for hitting lessons. I guess you start doing the math. It's not that easy it's not that difficult to add up.
Yeah, I think he's trying to get to the level where, the matches will be filmed. The statistics are out there. You just have to retrieve it. It's all for the players, But at the level where he's at, he has to do everything manually, because, you get some live results and stuff like that, but you don't get the numbers that you need, the observations, the filming that you need. You have all of that has to be done.
No, but then, do it yourself. In other words, how many tennis players are you seeing walking with a shoulder bag, and they're gonna warm up and they're gonna film practice, and that night, after practice they started the day in the gym, they ended the day in the gym, and they go back and and a lot of them, I've housed so many players, and I said, well, you're gonna stay with us for a month. Here's 2 kitchens, here's a refrigerator, go buy food. But they're complaining that, it's so expensive.
Yeah.
And it's not their money. Generally, it's not their money
Yeah.
when they're trying to give it a go. But my son Connor, he had his own read on it, and it wasn't wrong at all. And doubles is 20% of the money. He split it, and he have a very good skill set, to play doubles.
Yeah.
I told him, a friend of mine, he didn't stop playing until he played Wimbledon, and it's like, well, this is my goal. But he had a very good point. He said, well, if I continue doing this, and I don't start with a career, instead of starting a career at 28 and I'm starting one at 38.
Valuable years that are. Where are you going to invest your?
But I do think that years ago there was people who would play 6 months and go to grad school the other 6 months. It said, well, I have to, I got to chase points. My son played doubles with Peter Cobell. We did some video work for him, and we have it documented, and he made some improvements. Being number one, I don't think that he was necessarily even the best player at Ohio State at that time, but 6'7", he could move, and we had someone who was going to sponsor him, no strings attached, and I guess there was a string attached that they had to do what I said he had to do, and I said, well, okay, we'll take 6 months off, and we're going to teach you how to hit the ball better, and for the next 6 months you can go play on red clay. And David Cass, I remember him telling me, because his recommendation was different. He told me years later, he goes, well, I think your plan was better. But who wants to do that? Take 6 months off. You come out, you've played college tennis, you've been ranked 1 in the NCAAs, and someone's telling you, okay, take 6 months off, we're going to work on this. And then we're going to send you over to France, and you're just going to learn to construct points on red clay. It reminds me of the Raonic story where, the big server from Canada, and he's playing futures in Spain. This is a smart coach. And he's out there blasting aces. And the coach goes, you're not here to hit aces. You're here to spin your serve in and learn how to play and construct points.
Has anybody done that, like taking those?
No, I mean, I think all you have to do is think, do you ever see anybody putting a good, someone who's post-college, or even during college summertime? No, they don't. I hate to be doom and gloom, zero. But you teach people to chart. Now, what we do is that, we tell parents, okay, we got to get a hard drive, and we teach kids to use the equipment, and we teach kids to chart, and they don't do it. It's always about doing the extra. I worked hard and then some. Yep. Worked hard and then some. No, I can't. I don't think when people are under our watch, under our thumb, like I say, a Raven Clausen, he never really cracked it in singles, but 3 knee operations. When he was training with us, he was there as a base for 5 years, he made videos. I'd have him make these narrated slow motion analysis on strokes. I'll never forget Clausen making a video for Alex Vukovic, who played at Princeton, and at Kalamazoo he was playing Donald Young. Mm-hmm. And I remember Raven Clausen watching it. He goes, "I need some confidence. Look at this guy walk around." So you just, the little things add up. Now we say that the best position to become a head coach in football is to be the backup quarterback. They wear a headset, they carry a clipboard, and they stand right next to the head coach. A lot of brilliant minds in ice hockey are backup goalies. What do? They sit on the bench and they just observe everything. But no, I think that it's pretty difficult to coach kids, especially boys. When they're in college. One, academic load, so busy, and they have to make the decisions. Do you want to celebrate Tuesday? Then do you want to celebrate Wednesday? And they just party. In other countries, I mean, people know that here in the U.S., undergraduate studies is not like it is in other countries. In other countries, they don't say, well, there's Greek life. I mean, just think of sports. I think it's fantastic that no other country has a football team that's on national TV, and there's 100,000 people coming to a game on Saturday.
Yeah.
What do you got, Navarro we could still have to work to your daughter's ITFs. You know, my quiz you. I'm going to get you quiz you now. ITFs, what's it stand for?
I forgot.
Oh, come on, Navarro. You're going to fail the test. Idiots traveling foolishly. I think that's one of the best things about the UTR. Is some kid, you know, they live in Florida. There's a ITF in Florida, and they're in Barbados playing an ITF. And then you look at the draw, and it's kids that have like a 9.5, 10.5 UTR rating. Mm-hmm. Some parents are actually, they're lied to. It's like, well, do you want to play college tennis, you play UST tournaments. You want to play pro tennis, you play ITF tournaments. And when you really get right down, John Roddick, I heard him say this one time, if you're ranked 70 in the ITF juniors or you're ranked 70 in the USTA, those two players play, it's a flip of a coin.
Yeah.
It's really the top ITF players. It's really the top ITF players.
Yeah. It's very difficult to make it work also from the financial standpoint because it's such a waste of money, the ITF juniors. I mean, not a waste of money. Of course, you can always get something out of it, especially if you get top 100. You get to be, you know, you get to play in the futures level. Yes, there's always a couple of spots for the ITF ranked juniors in the.
No, if you're, I always ask kids, do your parents have a money tree in the backyard? Is it with
that's the thing, yeah.
$1 bill or $100 bills?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, kids have to learn to string rackets. I remember my son Connor went to Europe, and last year juniors, he went to Europe 3 times. But I remember when he was going over to play, I said, you have to string rackets. Mm-hmm. It's so expensive when they get to the boys especially. With Monica, I got to love the fact she's playing the one-handed backhand.
She loves it.
We have this video.
Yeah.
We have 3 things in common. We're both cute. We're both blonde. And we both love the one-handed backhand. Most aesthetically appealing shot. What are your thoughts on the one-handed backhand?
It took her a while to get the confidence, but she stuck to it, and right now it's part of her, just like if she would have played her whole life. So I think she's, but I think she could use it more, and use that one-handed backhand, slice, and come in more. I think she's a little bit reluctant to do that, and because I think that's one of the advantages is that you can come in volley and play all court.
Yeah, I do think that people we work with, you know, not like, you know, maybe the kids are knocking on the door ready to play for money, but Gian Octa was here. She's 15 years old. She's won the Ontario indoor and outdoor 18s. So she had a really good week at the Battle of Boca. I guess I could be wrong. I think she got to the finals and won a little bit of money. And the next week, she lost to somebody early second round, perhaps, that was in the tournament the week before. And I had her go watch your daughter play. And I said, go watch this girl play. She's doing more with the system than you are. You know, I always am so sensitive, right? I said, just go sit and watch her. And my son Connor, you know, he said, okay, I want to hit a one-hander. And Dave Anderson did so much for him, really helped him out. But Connor was at this Brookhaven facility where maybe 200 kids, and he went to a two-hander to be competitive. And you can only speculate, you know, would he have been better if he just stayed one-handed and gone forward? You know, he had a bad accident where he, you know, fell and went, you know, into the net post. And didn't break anything, but just had a major contusion and right in the right shoulder. And I just told him, I said, when you come back, why don't you tell everybody you're going to be a double specialist? And what you're going to do is just, I'm going to serve and volley. Mm-hmm. Just tell them you're coming in and go out and do it. Go out and do it. And reminds me of Billie Jean King. She went all the way to Australia to take lessons from Mervyn Rose. And you look him up, he was a really good tennis player, won Grand Slams. And she came back and said, my forehand's the best. My forehand is so much better than my backhand. Mervyn helped me so much. And then afterwards, when she was off the tour, she told everybody that was just a bluff. That was just a bluff. I still struggle in my forehand. You know, she's from that old school where wooden racket, one grip, go to the net.
Yeah.
You know, had the continental grip and had the roll. But with did Monica take the gap year?
No,
No.
Actually, she's going very fast with the school.
Yeah.
Not fast, but she's a pretty good student.
You want to just be careful with the NCAA rules. Obviously, she's far along with her tennis. We work with lots of kids that are a redo. They're how old is she now?
She's 16.
16. So we meet kids 14, 15 years old. You can still rebuild your game.
Yeah.
You know, to me, if someone is, they're top 10 in the U.S. and they're going to be offered a scholarship at a Power 5 conference, it's like, okay, we'll work within your game. But if not, here are the numbers. Less than 3% of kids play college tennis. And, I'm asked all the time, do you have a lot of connections? Do you know a lot of coaches? And I'd say, well, I'm pretty sure. I think I'm just one phone call away from talking to anybody I want to in college tennis. And with it helps a little bit when you can say this kid is a character kid. This is a kid you want in the locker room. This kid's going to get on the track. This kid's going to be in the gym. This kid's going to work so hard. But they're not really looking for a redo when they're in college.
Yeah.
With I do think someone where Monica is look at college tennis at 1 year at a time. Not turn it down.
No, yes, of course.
Someone would say they win San Diego or they win Kalamazoo, and our students have won those titles, and I would recommend turn the money down. And it's getting close to $100,000 to play one round in a Grand Slam. Because Patrick Gibson, who I was a supplemental coach around him a bunch, we have him on film. He knows what we teach, and he can do it very well left-handed. And he'd like to compete left-handed. But he went to A&M for 16 weeks. He played one semester. If he wants to go back, it's all paid for. The scholarship's there. So I think that's a good decision to turn that down. What about pros? You've been to so many countries. What about pros that if you had this? I do this with juniors. We did it last night, a rainy day, and I said, okay, name a country, name a college, name a pro, and I'll tell you some stories.
Yeah.
Because if you live tennis, if you had to say, okay, here's a pro, and give value to listeners, what would be a story you would tell?
We were talking earlier about Sabatini because if you remember, I took some time from the tennis tech program to go and get experience teaching tennis, and I ended up in Key Biscayne. Actually, I was living in the house where Sabatini used to live.
And who the coach was?
The
Patricia?
manager was Patricio Pei, the father.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I spent some time down there and just love the whole atmosphere. It's Miami. It's sunshine. It's beautiful over there. Very laid back. Not what it is now. Mercedes Paz, Gabriela Sabatini, I believe Gabriela Mosca. There are Tarabini. There are a couple of players that were in that circle. Being trained by Corsato. There were a few players from Brazil as well. So Mercedes Paz, I remember her the most, the doubles partner of Gabriela Sabatini, because she's a very, very nice person to be around. And from Sabatini, I would say, the grace, the passion for the game. She's been a very, very big supporter of the Argentinian tennis. The budget of the Argentinian Tennis Federation is very low. Mercedes Paz works with the Argentinian Tennis Federation, and she knows how important it is for the tour players to help junior players, not only with the relationship, inspiration, and experience, they also help them financially, or they've helped them in the past. And
She's done really well. She has like perfume and a line of clothing, and is that right?
yeah, she's done very well for herself, but I think she's taken also the lead, maybe by the example of Guillermo Villas, who was also very supportive of Argentinian players, and they have this pride of Argentinian tennis, and really they stick together wherever they go. I've seen the same with other countries, with Colombia, with Ecuador. Pretty much players that grew up together, or families that knew each other from the grandparents' times, and they stick to each other in the circuit when they travel together. It'd be nice to see something like this with American players as well.
Yeah, I think of my son's spent quite a bit of time in Växjö, Sweden. And back in the day, when the Swedes would have a Davis Cup tie, they all show up. Not just the ones that are going to play.
Yep.
They all show up.
Nice.
And that just amazing. One time, Arthur Ashe took Connors and McEnroe to Stockholm, and they couldn't even have dinner together. With Sabatini, we've talked about it before. I was reprimanded by one of our critics. I asked people to give us some input on improving these podcasts, and I couldn't name her coach. Obviously, there's so many coaches. It would help somebody out, like a Vilas or a Sabatini. Going back to Braden, when Braden was working with Vilas, he developed a holster where you put the racket with your legs. And he had this. He showed it for years. And Vic, you know how Agassi snaps his legs straight, and the legs are going from low to high, inside out. The racket's got to go high, low, high, inside out. Agassi, I think, is the best, and I think he was the best with his legs because his dad was, the souped-up ball machine, 2,500 balls coming a day, and it's like, okay, I'm going to counteract speed with speed, and then how he utilized the kinetic chain. So Braden had a holster, and he would just show people, you really get low, you're sitting in the chair, and you come out of it explosively, and that you hit topspin with your legs. I mean, the body and racket are synchronized. But for me, Kramer, Braden idolized Kramer, but she was number 2. She lost so many times to Steffi. She came in, and Lair was working with her, and obviously other people. I can't think of the coach that I should be able to say in this repeat story, but she went forward, and she's so athletic. But she had these big loopy strokes that really didn't penetrate enough when playing a graph, and Selish comes up she's taking everything on the rise. But I remember Kramer said she should take a year off. She's number 2 in the world. Number 2 in the world. She should take a year off and rebuild certain parts of her game. Said that on TV, and then later he said that to Vic, and Vic said, I know just the guy, and that's probably one of the best compliments. I was asked, what's the best compliment of the GreatBase? Dave Fish said that we're the Khan Academy of tennis, which we have some information. It's not ours. It's homework.
Yeah.
And that, but Sabatini.
Going back to Vilas, you know that he invented the twinner?
No, I didn't know, but Sabatini, she's like one of the only women that could just hit it like Federer. I mean.
Because he said that he practiced a lot before he used it in a match, but he saw it in the polo, because polo is big in Argentina. And he saw it in polo, the shot where they go between the legs of the horse.
Whoa.
And once, and he thought, I think I can do it in tennis. And so he practiced this shot a lot, and then he was able to do it. In Spanish, it's called El Gran Willie, because of Guillermo Vilas.
I didn't know that.
So in English, it's called the twinner.
Santana just passed away. We talked about him a little bit, where they gave him credit for hitting the topspin lob.
Oh, okay.
One great thing about Santana is, this is great for juniors, he didn't like to play on grass. He said grass is for cows, but he still won Wimbledon. He still won Wimbledon. And, that's where psychology, some of on one word, feelings, and then the big problem is avoidance. People.
I think I saw him last week. Santana?
No, Manolo Santana, the older guy, passed away like a month ago, 2 months ago. You might think of somebody else.
No, well, anyway.
I know you're devout Catholic, but you didn't see him.
No.
You didn't see him. you didn't.
Okay.
You didn't see him a couple weeks ago.
I believe you. Yeah, and then I've also seen a little bit of the development of Moster as a tennis player. Just incredible dedication, drive. He was just trying to prove everybody wrong. Everybody who told him he wouldn't make it, and that was his extra motivation, was just to prove it. All his critics. I think that was it.
I think that's what's probably the most powerful, other than the 6'6" and the serve. You have to put that number one. But Medvedev, I first saw him play, and he's so gangly, and but gosh, when that guy, he runs after every ball, and I've told kids, watch him. When the ball bounces the second time, he's right there and just catches it, gives it to the ball boy. That guy runs every ball down. And with Mooster, that guy's footwork. Why don't you tell the story about him getting hit by a drunk driver?
Oh, that's right. He was he won the semifinals against Yannick Noah, I believe, in Key Biscayne, and he went, I think they were going for a sandwich or something quick. They ended up, late at night, and when he went to grab his bag, a drunk driver hit the car, and, just...
I think it was right in front of a hotel or something. They should be going really slow as well. I could be wrong, but...
Yeah, but it broke his knee completely, and he was taken to the hospital. And then he was flown back to Austria, where the team of Niki Lauda took care of him, I think. Remember
I just remember they built the chair.
Yeah. No, but the team of Niki Lauda came back from a car accident, but at that time Muster was already like one of the most prominent athletes in Austria, and so they did help him with the recovery.
I remember Muster, when he retired, he was way overweight.
Yeah.
And he was flying a helicopter. And then he said, all right, I'm going to get back in shape. But no, it's the footwork. I think that's where people can get to a certain point. I tell people all this time, you go to these tournaments, and a lot of the kids, it's primal. They're not working anything. Roberto Calla from Peru, he would just watch somebody play and go, no information. You can just tell, and I don't really like it when people call what we do the classical look, the old school. Mm-hmm. Nick Baltier years ago said about Welby Van Horn, I never really understood the classical look, the classical thing. I remember writing a letter. I don't write too many letters, but it was published in, at that time, World Tennis. Mm-hmm. And it was in because I had spent years with Welby, and I never worked for Nick, but I had many people I trained that worked for Nick. And just to speculate, how well would that have gone if all those kids were being taught by Welby Van Horn, and they were, instead of having just a handful of kids on 4 courts in San Juan, Puerto Rico, if he was the person, and he would have got those kids to listen to him. Yeah. It's very interesting to talk like that. But primal meaning that the kids are free; they're just hitting the ball. But today I was telling someone they have a one-handed backhand, but they don't return at all with a backhand. They run around it. They're hitting a forehand from everywhere. And they go, well, you said at one time you want to hit a one-handed backhand, you're hitting a two-handed backhand return, but you don't really even hit a backhand return. And then with the passing shot on the backhand side, you hit with slice. So we're just going through, okay, the karaoke step, stand sideways, the hitting zone. We drop hit underspin backhands every day for a few minutes. And people look at that and they go, oh, that's 70s. They lag it, that's bad. And then you say, okay, what's the radius, the short ball range? And Braden would tell you, if you don't know the radius of short ball range, you don't know tennis. How many steps to get into GVP? How to get in when the approach shot bounces, that you're going to be right there. And then you say, okay, why play that shot? Is it, well, you take speed off the shot. When the ball's in flight, you're in movement. The trajectory is what keeps it low. And it's a passing shot, so you give your opponent 50% less pace. And then 130 degrees at the net, you just keep going. And I think that's the type of thing that Cuba needs to, okay, I'm going to learn all this. And then also I get to the net, and then it's 2 out of 3. We were just talking about one of your friends, somebody that you and Robert have been helping to, come spend a couple months with us, to make videos and sit there and over and over again, and you're writing down everything, and you watch the videos over and over and over again, and you get to the point where you can make the videos. Because you only know it if you can say it. You only know it if you can do it. And
You can teach it.
yeah, so someone like, to me, Mooser, I think of Monica Seles. That's a negative of the GreatBase curriculum, is that it's not going to allow for someone to have an unorthodox stroke. If we're teaching someone, it's like, no, basically we're telling you that you have to be able to hit a volley and you have to be able to hit an overhead.
Yeah.
You're playing doubles and you have to be able to go to the net. And acceptance, awareness, commitment, I get it. Because kids are out there and they're just going with 2 shots, and that's where, the one ball blast and the first 4 shots, or first strike tennis, serve +1. It's just the lingo, and it's like no, just because you know the lingo doesn't mean you really know what's going on.
I remember one thing that one time they asked Muster why he became a good tennis player or a top tennis player, and he said, because when I was growing up, there were no cell phones. He said, if I would be a kid today, I would probably not become a good player.
For 10 years, I was in charge of a junior college tennis team. Part-time pay, full-time work. The second 5 years, Brent Wellman helped out with that project a little bit, who's now working where you work. So Chad Burial came in. He was such a young head coach. But I oversaw the program, the rules at that time, junior college. And just to have certain rules. No one's going to have a palm-up serve. Everybody's going to serve and go to the net. And it's just like, this is what we're going to do. In that situation where it's like, okay, we're going to develop. It's not like you're working with a kid who's, they're, and I think a lot of kids that are very primal, in other words, they're just raw competitors, they can end up at a pretty good college, playing 6, not playing doubles, and they're a tough out. They're because their defense is very good, but they really don't have offense.
I think that's one of the best ways to continue staying motivated and not focus too much on the winning and losing, is when you're able to be more objective and have your clear goals based on statistics, based on film, and okay, this is what I'm trying to achieve, and just continue working towards those goals, because otherwise it becomes so emotional and pressure high and a roller coaster of winning and losing, and then you start looking at your lucky shorts and your lucky shirts.
Well, the circles of tennis, the highest circle would be international. I used to tell kids, this is not to make you feel bad, but to be an international person, someone in another country needs to know who you are. And they've got kids, a lot of their relatives like, who knows you in Belgium? Who knows you in Germany? Who knows you in Spain? Again, I think the German word Kreismeister, just try to get better. Just try to get better. And, that's where, one of the brothers from Colombia, Coach Alfie today, Juan Enrique and his brother Alfie, one of the kids was at the Delray Beach Open and said, gee, I think I need to go to bed and get up early. And, another time they weren't at a late match, and they said, this is on a weekend of a tournament. And another kid said, we know he doesn't play till 1 o'clock. We say, go to bed at 9, we'll warm up at 8. No, I want to sleep in. And Alfie said, you have no idea how much, and his word was trouble. You have no idea how much trouble these pros have been through to be where they are. I think junior tennis is like, come on, grind it out. You could share that with all your time in Europe. Is amazing. A European kid, a lot of times, they hang around and they're playing soccer somewhere right close by the courts. And they're just running like a horse all day. And then the American kid, we're the car society too. I know my son Connor, he was in Sweden playing, and he had a really good tournament. And I think it was because he wasn't here in Florida, where it's like, well, you're seated. And this was before he, by the time of the 16s and 18s, he was one of the better players in Florida. But so he's over in Sweden in 14s, and nobody knows who he is, and he doesn't know anybody else does. He does really well, but he was saying, well, we're staying here. Like you said, parents don't go. He goes, well, we have to ride our bike to breakfast. We have to ride our bike to go warm up someplace else. And we have to ride our bike to where the match is. And he's just going, whoa. I do think that, a lot of kids come and see us and we say, where are your running shoes? They don't have any. You train in another country. I think, this would be appropriate for this podcast talking about tennis in Argentina. A coach from Argentina said, what the Americans call coaching, we call child's play. And what the Americans call our coaching is child abuse. And it's like, Coach Juan came up to me the other day and said, well, one of the players has a headache. I said, it's no problem. Let her keep playing until she vomits. And, it's great for Coach Juan. I've spent a lot of time with him. He's a super guy, so creative, so giving, fantastic. But it's good to have coaches that coach out of love and then coaches who coach out of respect. But that's the answer you want. It's like, no, she's fine. She vomits, no one's going to die out here. Well, why don't you sit down a little bit? But that's where, I have no problem, these coaches that are, they're 40 years old, but I'm getting close to 70 and go, hey, this is the answer, and it's like, we would say that young people listening to our podcast, but you have to be careful because you could get fired if you talk that way.
Yeah, that's true.
You could lose your job. But the thing is your job coaching or is it glorified babysitting? The advantages, disadvantages of a one-handed backhand. It's just amazing though. It's how the brain is programmed. We had Jack Rappel on. You remember he came to Tennis Tech, and his dissertation for his PhD was the difference between hitting a one-hander and a two-hander. But I think that's something that's missing too. Is that for people to be mentored.
Yeah, for sure.
Would you say in South America and Europe that young coaches want to hang up their own shingle and do their own thing, or do they want to be mentored by a veteran coach?
Depends on the country. But I would say in Belgium, where we were, they spend time with more experienced coaching. They have to do it through the system they have. They have to spend certain amount of hours working it with kids, certain amount of hours assisting other coaches, and
well, and also to what you said, the little kid system in Belgium, that from club to club, the coaches are working together because it's systematic. Correct? I mean, this is how we teach young kids.
Yes.
It's not like...
So after they go through the two-dimensional, then they go to the red ball, which is the first three-dimensional teaching. And another nice thing that I saw is that they teach them to hold the racket and then throw the ball, and then the rally starts. So they don't serve, they just throw, and then immediately they go to the ready position, and then they start hitting.
No, for sure. If Welby Van Horn used to teach the serve last, and he'd say, no, I don't want kids playing with a palm-up serve. Now, how he would initially teach the serve would blow people away. He would say, put the racket in the tray position, toss, tap, you make this letter X. But what Welby would do in a very short period of time. So, he could get a complete beginner to look like they could serve. He would teach body balance position. So they have a stance. They're going to 3/8 system balance, hip, heel, head. They're going to end up on balance. But they put the racket in the tray position. Actually, he didn't teach the forehand grip. He said go a little past forehand. His racket faces vertical up on the high ball. Guide the ball, and then finish this way. And then what he said that's the beginner's grip, the beginner's serve. And now I'm going to teach you the championship grip and the championship serve. But by the time he did that, he had the kid with a low toss, right-hander out to the right. They're on balance, their head still.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, now I'm going to teach them the grip and then teach them the swing. But they can toss and they have balance. And, we got to interview Ed Weiss, who wrote the book, The Master, Welby Van Horn. But on the flip side, Welby, his kids were so good at age 12 and 14, on the forehand ground stroke, and he knew that. I mean, we're spending time in the nursing home when he was in his 90s, that he loved Federer. But he flipped it around where you go from an Eastern, you taught the beginner's grip, and then a composite on the forehand side. But at that time...
So composite towards continental?
Towards continental. And why he did that was it was wooden racket.
Yeah.
3 of the 4 Grand Slams are on grass. And then when you played, you were on spikes. By the second week of Wimbledon, it's raining, nobody wants the ball to bounce.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's where, to me, I've never seen anyone is even close to going out in a group and going, okay, this is how you teach beginners. But of course, now we can do it with Vandermeer group dynamics, and we could do it with Braden information. But this is body balance. With Navarro. What do you got down there? I see you taking notes.
I have. I was thinking also about Stan Franker. Remember, he was for me a big inspiration. The Dutch coach.
Yeah, his name's been mentioned on the podcast. He played tennis at USC, and I remember I was scheduled to spend the day with Vic, and he shows up, and of course Vic and I were going to talk about. I was thinking about going back to Southern California and getting Vic involved in juniors, and we had someone who owned in Orange, California. They owned a facility, and they said, "Okay, let's do this." And but so Stan shows up. And he goes, hey, I just want to see what else news going on, and Vic spent the whole day with him. That's where Braden, coming back to that, he was so poorly portrayed in the movie King Richard.
Who, Braden?
Braden, that he was about money, and
really?
Oh, that won't work. It costs so much money, and he would have never ever said,
Of course.
Of course, in that scene. I felt bad because the people who made the movie called me up, because I'm the one who, I go, well, just go to my Facebook page, it's on there. Then they called up and they wanted to know if they had to pay me for it. I said, no. I said, it's Richard's film. Richard gave it to Vic. Vic gave it to me. And anyway. But Stan Franker, I tell people, watch Richard Krajicek. And obviously so many people help a Wimbledon champion. But, that's where the best players, like a Yannick Noah's serve. Obviously, he had nothing to do with Braden. But although I think of Braden had a lot to do with Gilles de Kermadec, a Frenchman who made all these high-speed films. I was once with Vic, and I didn't have a speaking part, but it was Hanna Mandlikova, Betty Stova, and I'm just in the room. Great champions, but they didn't know what grip she had. Betty Stova is the coach. They didn't know what grip she had on the backhand side. Yeah. It's amazing. Like players, there's a film of Rosewall, there's a film of Sampras, and they're asking what grip do you use, and they stick their hand out and they go this way. I use this grip. Gilbert was interviewed and he goes, I don't do grips. That's where a lot of times if you're going to be a coach on this circuit, you're not changing someone's grip, for sure. What else you have? We'll wind this thing down here. Navarro.
No, that's pretty much it. There's so much more that can be developed. But
with stories, we tell stories about juniors. anytime you know a junior, it's almost like telling stories about your own kid if you spent that much time with them.
Yeah.
But it's great to have you on talk. I mean, it's great to have Natalia come out. She spent time learning how to teach. With Reunion, Tennis Techers. I think mostly through the 80s, right? I mean, I hear from coaches on a regular basis. I mean, we haven't done this yet, but I could take my phone and go, okay, let's go through this. Now, people have told us to make these podcasts. In fact, Robert was a very creative mind. We talk about doubles. Is that, well, they have a screen and do this and do that. We need to go back to the classroom. That's not really for the podcast format. But no, I think with talking to Mike McLaughlin, he was on, and we're both in our late 60s, and to carry the torch, like the people who know Braden, and know the information, really know it to the nth degree. But there are people that we've trained directly and indirectly. I think one of the saddest things, though, is that people that we trained, you could comment on this, so many tennis techers, they spent 2 years. And then they went somewhere, and their education wasn't matched by their experience. Mm-hmm. They went somewhere, and the coach said, no, we don't teach that way. We don't teach that way. Ursula Sager was from Switzerland. She went through the tennis tech program. And the coach goes, she's not going to make the team. We're going to send her home. And I said, well, I'll tell you what. Seriously, let me coach her for 2 weeks, and I'll get her to beat your number 6 player. And she did. She changed all her strokes. She was very easygoing, her brain type, smiling. And, then she stayed in the lineup. She played in the lineup. He didn't. I said, I'll bet you. Let me work with her for 2 weeks, And then I had her in the classroom. I knew that, and she had legs and she could run. And so I said, just have her play with us and she'll play number 1. That didn't happen. But so she comes back, talk about reunion, she comes back to visit. And she's hitting the ball the way she did before. Now, that'll happen with the brain. But I said, last names, I go, Sager, get over here. I go, what are you doing the way you're hitting the ball? And, of course, this doesn't point fingers at anybody. No one knows who I'm talking about. But she said, well, I work for my childhood coach. And now I'm demonstrating, I'm teaching the way I was taught. And I guess, well, a job's a job, and I think that's where so many young coaches, they do sell out because they don't have any experience, and they see the kids are bored. They see kids are bored and go, okay, we got to switch it up. Now we got to bring in the fun drills. And it's just instruction, destruction, and it's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Closing thought?
Definitely. So grateful for everything you're doing in tennis. I mean, for keeping us in tennis because, and continuing the access to information. Every time we spend time with you, we'll learn something new. We can apply it to our kids, to our juniors. It's nice. We're very happy that you're close by.
Well, thanks. To be back in South Florida, sunshine, clay courts, and competition. I'm not 100% sure how I'm going to do this, but I do think that it's very important. Like, we just had this group of 50 people here, 51 actually, and no advertising. Woman asked, I mentioned that, have a workshop. Braden, 50 points, 50 people, 50 points, interpreted 50 ways. Do the math. Maybe we should have stayed at home. Here in Florida, maybe we should have gone to the beach. But it does help when someone comes to visit and we do peer teaching. It doubles the learning. It should reduce the cost. And kids aren't stupid. The KISS method, keep it simple, stupid. We have a young kid here from Japan, and someone's helping him out, be here, a teaching pro, great guy. And he knows. He goes, he goes, I just know if he just hangs in there, he's just around this day in and day out. You know, he's from Japan, so they go to the track and have everybody bow because he has the best mile time of the group that's been here the last few months. He ran a 5:02 mile. But the dummies, you know, the teenage boys, I used to be one of them, they don't respect his tennis game because they beat him. They beat him, but they go, guys, you know, you played so much and this and that. But, you know, that's where, you know, hungry dog hunts best if you put the time in. But, no, I think it would be good. Maybe not necessarily in the summers. This summer, yes, maybe. It's like talking to people today about running a tennis camp. You know, regrets. Do you have pain of discipline and pain of regrets? You know, years ago, this would be a regret that we should have a camp. We should have a tennis camp, and if it'd been ongoing, but the tennis camp needs to be for the player and the parent.
Yeah.
You know, like this week, we had a highly educated guy, lawyer here with his son, and it's like, guys, you know, the kid's got a match on Sunday when he goes back. I go, well, your choice, but I said, the video we made for you is not about you playing a match on Sunday. Mm-hmm. And he's a freshman, which we could have told him about the gap year. And Coach Natalia, you know well, she's here helping out. Lots of energy. She's grown so much as a tennis coach the last 5 years. She's spot on. She tells the kid, you should run track. This spring, run track. And he doesn't even need to go to a tennis court. You should run track, and he should just work on technique. And you work in technique in your driveway, your garage, and you're reprogramming your brain.
Yeah.
But who's going to do that? Who's going to do that? You know, the college coach can do that because it's a dictatorship. They're in charge. It's like, no, you want to be on the team? And they used to do that years ago. You know, okay, you're a project player. You're going to come in. They do it in football, and now they're doing it in basketball. You're going to come in. You're going to learn the system. And, you know, it's really sad that these kids who come to see us and that you ask them about high school tennis. Some of them are too cool for school. They're not even going to play high school tennis. And then you ask them, well, you're a freshman. What number do you think you'll be? And I've coached so many kids. Well, I'll be number one. And that's not going to happen in basketball. You're going to be on the freshman team, the JV team. And so that expression, you're at the mercy of your impulses, and then you're a slave to your habits. Mickey Mantle. We form our habits, and then our habits form us. You know, the habit, we have Petrus and Christelle Kukimore, their daughter was just here. Great kid, you know Gabby. Ernie Clore, father of Matt and Chris, watched her just recite the habit poem, and she said, okay, she's going to be CEO of a Fortune 500 company. I tell people all the time that Mallard did it for us the other day. I said, okay, go, write it down, put it on your refrigerator. And it's just great. I need the assistance of it goes pretty much like this. I need the assistance of a highly intelligent person. I will destroy you, or I will make you great. You know, the choice is yours. Yeah. The habits. Yeah. So what was Willie's line? One more? Let's do it again. What did he say over and over again? We'll sign off on that one. What comes to your mind? He's giving lessons, or you're hitting balls. If it was his three things.
No, just vamos a pegar. He would just take us to the court. But yeah, some things he just said bad words. Bad words. I never say bad words. Pinocchio. My noses are pretty big. But yeah, I think that most coaches, whatever language, is one more time, do it again. Again. It's like that movie, Miracle on Ice. Again. Yeah. All right, Navarro, you're going to heaven and tennis heaven. Thanks for being part of our podcast. Episode 81 is in the books.